welcome to the Route 1 Football Podcast, the second one round this time. It's not an interview, but we're joined with four of the co-creators of the Route 1 Football media platform as we look to discuss Sunderland Till I Die, the Netflix series that took over the footballing world in 2018 and 19. In 20, a new season came out this year, but we're focusing specifically on season 1 for this podcast. And it's fitting that we're joined by two Sunderland fans in Adam Gill.
Hello.
And Aaron Morris.
All right, mate.
I'm very good, thank you. And we've also got myself and James Noble.
Hello.
Yeah, just here for a bit of colour as well. Why not? And we'll get straight into it with the first episode. It's an 8-episode season 1. Season 2, I believe, is a slight bit shorter at 6 episodes. I feel just like there was a lot more to get through in the first season in terms of the turmoil of the club. And we start with, there's an opening church sermon being given by a priest. His name's never specified in the show, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't quite find it, but gives an opening sermon, basically linking religion to football in Sunderland, how the club is a religion to a lot of people in the say, and it leads us straight into the opening song, Shipyards by the Lake Poets, which I think is a lovely song, right? But my God, does it go on for too long for an opening sequence for a TV show? Like, I'm not being funny, but like an ideal TV show theme goes for 30 to 40 seconds, a minute tops. This goes for 2 minutes. Why? Can anyone answer that? Why?
I don't know.
Yeah, the guy who recorded that, his dad used to teach his engineering at school.
Yeah.
Really?
I remember seeing him at a gig at Independent, the Lake Ports gig, and he was downstairs at the bar getting a pint, and I was like, oh, it's our boy, he's got a gig upstairs. I was like, oh, your son's Marty. I didn't realise, but mad, small world.
All right. That's the thing, 'cause it is a nice song. I don't mean to slag them off, because I actually quite like the song, but and there's so much in it where you could just cut, and it's not as if it's a massive opening sequence where it's showing you all of these things. A lot of it is filler, and I feel like this, in general, is filler because I think they wanted a lot of the episodes to hit the 40-minute mark, and a lot of them do quite fall short of that anyway. So I feel like putting in a 2-minute song sort of it helps them to get to that. 'Cause I think they signed on for it. I think that might be one of the reasons it's 6 episodes in the second season, to be honest, because they were given 8 episodes, 40 minutes each, and they're filling it with that. And I feel like they're stretching it out a bit, but still, it's just a very minor of many minor nitpicks I have about this series. If anyone expects me to be really jolly about it,
Never has the skip intro button been more useful on Netflix.
Geez, yeah, because it's the 4th time I've watched this through, because it's on Netflix when I am just dead bored and I've got nothing else to watch. I will rewatch them until I die, quite often. Especially since living there and stuff, I've got more of a vested interest. And I remember just thinking, I always watch it the whole way through the first episode because I want to see if it's as long as I remember it. I feel like I'm exaggerating, and no, it is. It's 2.5 minutes. The skip button is so frequently used in this series. But we get on. We meet a few members of the squad. We just get sort of introduced to the club as a whole. And one of the first players that speaks is Lee Catamol, and he says, "I've just clicked out a little bit about his ambition for the season. Promotion, automatic, win the league."
Yeah.
Sorry, Lee.
Barry Catamol.
Sorry, we do love you, Lee, but that was nice.
His heart was in the right place. His head wasn't though.
No, the football club wasn't in the right place. I think more importantly. Yeah. And I think I've noted here that the squad was very positive in general, because obviously it starts in pre-season. Simon Grayson's just come in as the new manager after David Moyes was let go after the club finished bottom of the Premier League, and it's sort of the whole squad. You see John O'Shea speaks, I think, and they're all saying how confident they are going into the season, and I just do wonder if that's just been put on a bit for the cameras rather than an actual belief that they held, because it would come across a bit weird as a side who's just come down for if they've got a Netflix crew coming in to document their season. If just Lee Catamol, the first thing he says oh yeah, we're shit, we're just going to go straight back down, we're just going to be down again, right? So I think, I don't know, it's an odd one. But
we tried that with David Moyes, didn't we, Harvey? And you seen how far that got him with the fans, you know what I mean? Like, as a Sunderland fan, you don't really want to hear your players and your manager and your chairman and stuff like that saying, like, look, it's not going to be an easy fight. We'll probably end up getting relegated. You know what I mean? Like, you need positivity to a certain extent. Otherwise, like, you'll just lose the fans there and then.
Oh, of course, yeah. I think in hindsight, it's a very powerful thing as well, because you can go into any season predicting any sort of finish, and you don't know what's going to happen 9 months down the line. But then, the show kicks into gear because we meet this absolutely fucking legend. He comes into it. Sunderland's best taxi driver, Peter Farrer. Oh, what a hero this bloke is! I've told the story like so many times, but just being in his taxi, absolutely off my head after a night out. It's just, what a pleasure that was. What a pleasure that was. What an absolute boy Peter Farrer is. Adam, have you ever been in one of his taxis?
No, I haven't, unfortunately. I want to, but no, I haven't had that pleasure. He epitomises like everything about a Sunderland fan, like just working class, loves the club, you know what I mean? And I just want to meet him.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if he works. Does he work for Station?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I feel like if you just ring up Station, you should be able to request Peter Farrer.
Like a cameo.
Yeah. It's like, is there a taxi version of OnlyFans? Oh, actually, no, we'll not touch that. But yeah, just be able to ring the station up and just be like, oh yeah, I need to get to Bridges. Can you come pick us up? And they're like, oh yeah, but only send Peter Farrer. I've already chat with him. He's a very legend. Anyway, and Peter Farrer in his taxi talks to the interviewers and the audience through the last few decades as a Sunderland fan. And you kick off like with the most positive thing. And the first episode is called Blinded by the Light, and that's the song that plays us into this montage with the 1973 Cup final, where Peter Farrer says it's the best time to be a Sunderland fan. I don't think anyone can really disagree with that, to be fair. FA Cup final, last major trophy Sunderland have won. Causes a great achievement. And then it takes you through the decades of and then into the 2000s. It sort of just skips through the 80s and 90s, doesn't really mention anything. Moves into the 2000s, moving into the Stadium of Light, solidifying as a Premier League club, a couple of promotions for the Championship, and then solidifying with a 10-year spell in the Premier League. And it sort of like hits, like with it sort of the reality hits when you realise they're back in the Championship. And it's not just the back in the Championship, it's the state the club's in now that they're back in the Championship as well. And it sort of, a bit of commentary plays over, and I think it's Conor McNamara, but I might be wrong there. There's an Irish commentator. I think it's from, I don't know if it's from a cup game or a league game from when Sunderland were in the Premier League. But he says, like, for a city, for the North East, for a region of the country where poverty and unemployment is such a massive factor, football brings us together. Sorry?
Is it Alan Green?
It might be. It might be, yeah. That's me very much generalising Irish commentators there, just guessing it was Conor McNamara, which is the only one I know. Yeah.
Remember, Alan Green says something, but yeah. And that kind of sums up.
Yeah, I think I'll trust your judgment more than my own on that one, James.
I appreciate the confidence.
But I feel like it's very much presented as Sunderland being relegated as another kick in the teeth to Sunderland as a whole, because they mentioned the docks and the miners' strikes and everything that's happened in Sunderland. And Aaron, as our resident senior, what do you make to Sunderland being affected more with the relegation of the club?
I mean, I'm not quite old enough to remember 1973 by any stretch of the imagination, unfortunately, as much as she's like the buggers about being an old bastard and that. But to be fair, mate, I think it's easy to say like all of the negativity that came from us being relegated, firstly into the Championship, secondly into the depths of League One, but we'll talk about that another day, I'm sure. But obviously, like, just our culture kind of guns down the Swanee, you stop sort of being a landmark for football fans from bigger clubs coming into the city and stuff like that. The gigs at the Stadium of Light obviously got pulled after we ended out the Premiership, you know what I mean? So, like I say, I feel like it kind of just, it does have a massive impact. Obviously, relegation, not being in the Premiership.
I feel like how much of an important role as someone who's from the Aaron's gone for a bit. I'm sure we'll see him back in a moment. Adam, how important is the football club to the city?
Massively. You know, I mean, if you go into Sunderland and you talk to anybody, like, and they say, like, oh, what are you doing on Saturday? They'll be like, going to the game. I mean, like, during the season, they'll be like, yeah, I'm going to the match. And it's like, it's part of people's lives. Like, they work during the week, and then they go to the football, and it's like, every Saturday, it's just, like, about Sunderland. And it's like, it's huge. And how well Sunderland do is massive to the city, like, the people in the city. And to see Sunderland get relegated was like a massive blow. Like, I'll go to games home and away, and you can just tell, like, the atmosphere around the city, around the fans. Like, people even who don't even go to the games, like, morale, like, dropped a bit. You know, it's huge. Just like, it's crucial in people's lives.
Yeah, and I think that sort of comes into play as well. He's back. It comes into play. Oh, it's all right, no worries. Yeah, we're continuing on. I think that comes into fact. It's a one club city, as well, where like similar to, obviously you won't let me making the comparison, but Newcastle and Leeds, in a sense of like, and obviously with football being such a massive thing in country, and I'd argue probably a bit more in the north of the country in terms of like the culture that the towns are based around. Sunderland, like Newcastle, Leeds, like a lot of local morale relies on the team doing well. And when you're in a situation that you were starting to really, this was just like sort of the beginning of the situation that you're unfortunately still currently in. It's a noticeable drop off in the mood around the place as well, I feel. And we quickly move on and meet Simon Grayson, the time newly appointed manager of Sunderland. And well, I'm sure anyone watching this already pretty much knows the situation. That he didn't exactly end swimmingly for old SG at the Stadium of Light. I thought I'd just have a quick run through his managerial career. So he retired as a player and took over at Blackpool. And I've not wrote the years down, so maybe I think it was like 2007. Yeah, it was. I'm fine. 2007 or 6. And after 18 months, they were like at the bottom of the league. This is his first managerial job. He was at the bottom, and he took him within 18 months from struggling at the bottom of the league to promotion through the playoffs from League One. And you feel like, all right, he's done well there. And he had he left a bit controversially to join Leeds. He dropped back down to League One in 2008. Around Christmas time 2008, he joined Leeds. He's from Leeds. Well, he's from Yorkshire. I think he's a Leeds fan, so it sort of made sense. And he took over, and again, with them struggling a bit in League One, finished 4th with them, and then they beat Manchester United in that famous FA Cup tie at Old Trafford, with Jermaine Beckford scoring. Grayson was in charge for that. The season after he took Leeds up, again, just after like 18 months. So he built himself quite a reputation, and then did decently in the Championship, but was let go. Huddersfield took over them in League One and took them up. I won't mention who they beat in the playoff final. But yeah, and then took over at Preston, did a really good job with Preston, and then took them up as well. And I feel like this sort of like categorises Simon Grayson as he was at least, because he's not really had much success since this job. I feel like this was a big shot in the arm for his entire career, really. Well, that's probably the wrong phrase to use, but he was a very good League One manager. He was a very good manager at getting teams out of League One who were underperforming. He never really quite cut it in the Championship. He stabilised Preston, he stabilised Leeds, he stabilised Huddersfield. He always stabilised teams in the Championship after taking that level. And Sunderland wasn't about stabilising in the Championship. They hadn't just come up, they had just come down. They were on a downturn, and they needed someone to really pick up and go for the jugular in the Championship, and it's not quite what happened. So
yeah, I think that like it's like coming down from the Premier League as Sunderland, like big club as Sunderland, you need somebody with championship experience, who knew the league inside and out, and like even if we just finished like mid-table, just stop the downfall and then start again, that would have been better. But I think appointing Grayson, looking back, was the wrong appointment. I mean, he'd done well in League One, but he just wasn't what we needed at the time of his appointment, I think.
If you find it as easy as I do, Skinny, I'm pretty sure you will. But as a Sunderland fan, obviously, as soon as we appoint a manager, I find it easier to pick the negatives part of them rather than the positives. And when Grayson was appointed, obviously, we'd seen he had a fantastic run. I think he just left Preston before he came to us, as you were saying, wasn't it? In League One, always had a stellar record in League One and the lower leagues, but like you say, he never really had a shift in the Championship. And obviously, I remember looking back at it and thinking, wrong appointment straight away from day one, just solely because of the fact he didn't have Championship experience. And maybe that's the Sunderland fans sort of bugging themselves. Like I've done it with everyone personally. David Moyes, them comments straight away, negativity. Minus Sam Allardyce. Obviously, Sam Allardyce was the boy, but every sort of Sunderland manager that we've had over the past maybe 10, 15 years, I've automatically just looked straight at the negatives. And Grayson was just another one of them. You know what I mean?
I will sort of fight Grayson's corner here a little bit in terms of the experience point, because although he had Championship experience, he'd been in the Championship with 4 different clubs, and he'd managed to stabilise it. I think his lack of experience was being at the top end of the Championship. Like he was around the playoffs with Leeds, to be fair, but I feel like at that time they thought they were going to be on, like, it was before even Southampton did it, but on a Southampton-esque trajectory of like right straight up and straight up. But that it wasn't where they were at, and they got impatient. And I feel like with Preston as well, he was starting to get him around the playoff places, so I could see why the appointment was made. But I agree with what you're saying. It wasn't in the end. It was clearly not the right one. And we go there, and it leads us in. The first football game that we see during this documentary series is a friendly at home to Celtic, where the Celtic fans come in massive numbers, in massive spirits. Yeah, very, very friendly game, which we'll talk about with the scenes afterwards. But they brought lots of numbers. They filled out that stand behind the goal. Looked like they were making some unbelievable noise. And very positive fans outside the ground before the game, where they go around Arsenal fan TV-esque asking for match predictions. And a lot of them are just like, aye, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 Sunderland. Aye, are we the lads? We're going to batter them easy. Yeah, lost 5-0. Not great. Not a great start to the footballing side of this documentary, I think. And I feel like I don't know if I were in a bad mood when I was writing these notes, because I've literally just written. The first thing I wrote was Sunderland walk out to the Apprentice music, and I can just imagine Charlie Nathan was somewhere just punching a desk. But we'll get to that if we do a season 2 version of this. And I wrote Ditched by Celtic, made to look like the end of the world. Because in this documentary, it is made to look like the end of the world. Yeah, it's not a great thing to get hammered at home in your last pre-season friendly, but it is a pre-season friendly. And yes, they did end up doing poor in the league, but it is made to look like you've lost a cup final, and it's really weird.
It wasn't the Dafferbeck Cup, wasn't it, Harvey? I think that's what they called it, the Dafferbeck
Was
Cup.
it?
Yeah, because obviously it was
sure it was.
That's why
they don't mention that weirdly. You think they would? I think they would mention
it. You know what I mean?
How did that come across to you, James, as someone who isn't a Sunderland fan, with them, like how they presented like the significance of this insignificant game?
Yeah, it was strange because it's almost, because we're all watching it very kind of like in tune with, well, we like to think in tune with sort of what's going on in the city, what it's like kind of watching Sunderland and just watching football in general. And I suppose maybe kind of the vibe it's trying to put across is one that's somehow more relatable to those watching it who aren't sort of regular football watchers. So they kind of try and give it more of a send it more in sort of the drama direction than the football direction, with sort of the slow-mos in the relevant moments, the sort of, as you say, kind of making it feel like some kind of major setback, which I suppose it was in some ways, in that obviously it's kind of a friendly, which a lot of fans were obviously looking at as kind of a marker for where the season was going to go, and I suppose in some ways it was in the end, unfortunately. But I think it's just the nature of sort of documentaries and stuff, and maybe trying to cater for sort of the wide audience. But admittedly, from our perspective, watching it, it was a bit strange, sort of seeing the emphasis put on it. But I suppose, I don't know, I guess that's just what context does, and what sort of your understanding of the context does to it.
Yeah, I suppose so. And he does show some like fan clips where one guy just like he's just coming out of the concourse. Well, no, sorry, he's just outside of the concourse. And he's proper kicking off. It's showing on like the CCTV like security room. And like a copper or a steward or someone just grabs him and chucks him out. I'm thinking, imagine getting chucked out of friendly.
Yeah.
Like, imagine. And then right, okay. I've just seen that this is next to my notes, and I want to talk about this. I sort of want to get it out of the way now, but I will mention it later on. I hate the editing in this show. I despise it. It pisses me off so much because they show the end of this game, right? You've lost 5-5. They go outside, and there's a fan saying it's not the play, it's the players. You got Carlo. He's like, this is his fault. It's not Simon Grayson. He's a good manager. He's got a bad team. And then a kid comes past and shouts, "Blue Birds." So it clearly wasn't the Celtic game. It obviously wasn't the Celtic game, unless they changed their nickname for that game only. It pisses me off so much.
It's the same after some of the game. It's like later on as well. It's like after the game. It's like clips from different games, and like you can see the teams in the background, like the different teams. You're thinking like,
it's like they'll show someone scoring a goal away from home, and it'll cut to fans celebrating at the Sol, and I'm like, dude, we're thick. Like, how thick do you think we are? Because I feel like, and honestly, I will praise the people who've made this documentary. I'm not just crapping on it, because I do genuinely really enjoy it. But it's just these little things. Like, I'll mention it now, so I don't rant about it when we get to that episode. But when you play Brentford away, it shows one clip of Simon Grayson at Griffin Park once. And you're thinking, right, so they've clearly got a camera on him, but that was the only use, because every reaction clip for Simon Grayson, the use of the game at Griffin Park, they show him at the fucking KC. Like, it's so clear because the stands are orange, and there's actual stands. It's not just like a little level, it's actual stands. You're just like, how thick do you think your audience are that they're not going to notice that?
Yeah.
Sort of, like the continuity of the series as well, it sort of like messes it up a bit. It's like you're watching it and you think,
it takes me out of it so much.
Yeah, you think, and hang on, wait, I thought we were playing Brentford, not all.
Because like it shouldn't, and it isn't it? Because I sort of feel hypocritically because I've just gone about how they made a massive deal of something that's really inconsequential, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing here. But I think it's just for my like personal viewing experience, it takes me out of it so much. So I'll be invested, like say in that Brentford game, because they present that Brentford game, I think, really well for the most part when they show like the action and stuff, and I'm invested. I'm like, all right, yeah, what happens now? And then it just shows something completely different, and I'm like, wait, hold on a minute, like where are we? Like set down where we are and stick to it. If you've not got shots of Simon Grayson during the Brentford match, here's a fucking thing. Don't show Simon Grayson during the Brentford match. Like, I don't get.
It breaks your concentration as well, doesn't it? Because like, you're sitting there watching what you think's Brentford, and like you see then Simon Grayson automatically at the KSA Stadium, and you see them orange seats, and then you just like you completely forget that you're watching a documentary, and your head's automatically thinking, that's fucking hell. Like what? And then by the time you figured out what's happened, you're about 5 minutes past, and you've got to rewind for that. You know what I
mean? The way I'm vastly over dramatising it, but imagine you're watching a World War II documentary, right? And they're talking about Dunkirk, right? And they're showing like, oh, this is the amazing things that happened at Dunkirk, and then it shows the Blitz in Coventry. Like that's what it was like to me. It's just like, well, show the thing you're trying to present. Yeah. Because I don't get the over reliance on constantly cutting to the manager. Because if you haven't got the clips from that game, that's fine. don't show it. You've got plenty of fan clips. Just show all of them, and then just show what Grayson says after the game. Like, it's fine. And I just feel like I don't know why they felt the need to do it. Anyway, that's the most negative I will get about this series, I promise, because that's the main thing that pisses me off so much. Like, because I've not seen any other series do it, and it just it gets under my skin a little bit. I can't remember if they do it much in season 2. I don't know if they learned the lesson, but I'll have to remember when I go and rewatch that.
I suppose
James
it
Corden,
just
if you're
shows.
watching this, you need an editor. That's your guy there.
No, I'm not even saying I'm good, but I can just tell the difference between Griffin Park and the Cake-Off. Like, I don't think that's so much to ask.
No, it just shows the difference that sort of small things can make, doesn't it? I suppose, and it's just something that, like, probably some may not, might not be picked up on, and might not sort of impact it so much for some, but it does kind of act as a bit of a distraction in moments. So but still, I suppose the fact we're, as you say, the fact we're picking up on something like that, which is relatively minor, is almost an endorsement at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. See, Fulwell, if you are watching, we're not all arseholes. Plato's got a tone of voice to him, and he likes to give his opinions very nicely, rather than me. I'm just having a go at you. But we'll move on from there. We have just a couple of things to brush over. We have Jason Steele being a dad. He just, as his kids, drops them off at school, talks about how much of a bad mood he gets in after they lose. And just general footballer stuff. And then we have Lee Barry Catamol sat, I think maybe at a golf course. It looks like, it might be his house, but it looks like a golf course. Sat in the garden having a very posh looking cup of tea. Just because he proper, like, that picture, it gives me proper, like, vibes of this is how it looks like a serial killer in a mental care unit. Have you ever seen Shutter Island? That's what this reminds me of. Like, where they're all doing the gardening, they look really at peace and stuff. He's just staring off, and I can just imagine the amount of 50-50 tackles that are going through his head.
Yeah. Just callback line on the floor.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of as well. He's just thinking, like, he's sat here, because he looks at peace, and I imagine Lee Catamol is at peace when he pictures Jack Colback writhing in pain on the floor at the Stadium of Light. I feared for the interviewers a little bit there. So I was just like, ask the wrong question, and you're getting buried somewhere in this field.
Well,
But anyway, we love Lee Barry.
We do.
Downtime in the most literal sense, and
And this is where we get introduced to the man who is sort of framed as he's one of the main, I don't want to say characters because they're real people, but he's almost framed as the antagonist and the villain in this first season, and that's Bond villain Martin Bain. Because he just does look like Jason Statham. We'll get that out of the way straight. He's the absolute ringer for Jason Statham, and it sounds like his accent's just really menacing. It's not really his accent because not with a Scottish accent, it's his tone. Like, he's really menacing in everything that he says. And after his interviews, looks like he's in this big mansion, and I just feel like, right, we've spoken to about 5 people in this documentary so far. Half of them have given me serious serial killer vibes, and I just don't know why Sunderland's full of all these. Sunderland Football Club just packed to the rafters with all these menacing people. We come to learn a lot about Martin's role. Go on, Adam. Sorry.
I can imagine Martin Bain being there like Blofeld in the Bond films.
Yeah.
Just has that vibe about him, to be honest with you.
He's always sat with like a glass of whiskey or something in a really like posh chair, or he's slamming doors and making like the whole room shake. As we'll get to later on.
Yeah, in fairness, that I know it's later on, but that was an excellent door. So if you're going to do it, do it.
And he's introduced as well with like the interview being sort of like a voiceover, and he's swimming, and it's really dark, so they do present it as like really menacing. It's like you should be scared of this bloke.
Yeah.
Like, he'll kill you without hesitation and smile while doing it. Like that's the presentation Martin Bain gets here. And then Martin Bain's first really task that we get shown is to deal with the backlash of Darren Gibson going out to a pub in Sunderland, getting bladdered, forgetting that every man and his dog has a mobile phone with a camera on him now, and he's talking to some Sunderland fans absolutely off his face. He's not listing off. The fans are listing off players who he suggests doesn't care about Sunderland Football Club and don't want to play. And while he's professing that he does care, which I don't doubt necessarily, I feel like he had his own struggles that were outside of football that affected him later on. But I don't think you could really doubt his commitment to Sunderland as a club or like to playing. But he does sort of like leave his teammates hanging out to dry here, doesn't he, Adam?
Yeah, I'm not like, I know why there's like a bit of outrage about it, but I'm not like that bothered about him going out getting drunk. It's like everyone does it, and to be honest, he said what most Sunderland fans already knew. Like, there's a few players at the club who just don't care, and I think by just saying it from his point of view, being a player, then it sort of like confirms them suspicions that every fan have had. But obviously, like, he was sort of in the wrong of it a bit as well, because he went out and got drunk, which was quite bad. But it's life, you know. Just move on. But when he played for us, he played well, like committed 100% every game, and I thought he was one of the better players until later on in the season where he left. But we'll get to that later on in this podcast.
Yeah, definitely will. And Martin Bain sort of like confirms what Darren Gibson is saying while also condemning him, because he says in the interview that like he sees a player in the car park from the first day of back for the first day of training, and they just get chatting and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, you're happy to be back?" And the player says no. He said, "But I've got a contract. I'm going to see it out." I just want to ask you who you think that player was. I'll go to you, Aaron, because I just want to stare.
One of two, innit? It's either me gut instinct, which is Jack Rodwell, or me other instinct, which is Didier and Dong.
Yeah, those are the two players I had in my head as well. I think I'd probably go Rodwell more, just based on what we've been presented of him. Plato, who do you reckon it was? Oh yeah, I've not really said this. We're recording, but we call him Plato. I should have really said this. We're really confused for people when I've introduced him as James and I've just called him Plato from now on. So just get used to either of those. Sorry, go on, James.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I don't know. It's because I was thinking about this, and I don't know. Yeah, I suppose with what we see, you almost don't want to sort of drop someone in it, but yeah, with what you see later on with Rodwell and the sense you get, you wouldn't be surprised if it was him, which is unfortunate, and obviously, yeah, there's no way of telling, but it wouldn't be a shock. It would be relatively consistent with what he said later on, sort of during January or whenever it was. They sort of focused on it a bit more.
Yeah, Adam, would you probably round off that and just say it was Rodwell?
I'll say it could have been him, but I mean, if you look back at like the start of the season, you had Rodwell, Kone, Lenz was there for a period, Dillabodji and Dong. I think like one of them five.
Wabi Kazri maybe? He left pretty early on.
Yeah, I think Kazri was more because Moyes sort of neglected him a bit. Yeah, like he was one of the better players, but Moyes just pushed him out the squad a bit. So I don't think it would have been Kazri, but you know, I don't know, just a shot in the dark and who it could have been. But I'll say Rodwell to round off trio.
Let's just bully Jack Rodwell, Sheffield United player.
I do think either way, it's really like, even though I don't know, I suppose with some of the stories you hear, it's not all that surprising to sort of hear something like that. But I still think it's quite surprising. You get into the car park, you're getting out of your car next to the chief exec or whatever. He asks you that question, and to give that answer is sort of quite.
You've got to have some front on you, haven't you, to say that?
That's the thing. And I mean, and they did say in fairness, like, I've got a contract, I'm going to honour it, which sort of suggests I'm just going to grit my teeth and I'm going to work and whatever, which in a sense is a bit more positive. But yeah, it's still quite surprising to be that frank.
Yeah.
But
I can't really think about like another line of work where you're gonna get away with that. Like
it angers me because like you've got all these kids like playing the academy and stuff like that who like would literally die for the chance to like be able to play for Sunderland regardless of like the contract that they're on. You know what I mean? That would be getting £100 a week as long as they were playing football. They'd be out of the fucking moon. Then you've got a Sunderland player who's maybe making 50, 60 grand a year to say something like that. You know what I mean? It's just you think like wait. Didn't just rip your contract up and fuck off. You know what I mean?
And Martin Bain pretty much echoes that sentiment, saying that like, oh well, like I did him that probably. So I said to him, right, let's get you upstairs and we'll sort you out and move. Then and like, we'll not play. You'll not be here anymore. Which I think some. I definitely think it's a minority of players, but some players do take advantage of the privilege, I think, and not recognise the position they're in. And obviously, there are struggles, but in that sense, like. You are getting paid to play football. Like, complain about getting paid to play football, like as that blanket thing is a bit don't really sit well with me. But anyway, we get into more like transfer-based stuff now as we come to the end of the first episode, and I've written here in full caps. I feel like this pissed me off a bit. I must have calmed down since. And it says Sunderland expert Jim White, and I've wrote it down in all caps. That's who they speak to about. Sunderland's transfer dealings, and I don't know why that angered me as much as it did. Also, before that, we had like the Simon Grayson like team briefing like for the season, and I just thought this was the biggest load of waffle because he just like, oh well, when we score, celebrate together, because that'll show we're positive, and that travels to the fans, and they're positive, and then we do well as a team, and the players just looked like they don't care. Anyway, it just seemed like a lot of bullshit.
The fact that he wrote it on like one of them, like not whiteboards, but the boards with the paper. It's like you have them in like year 3 of school. Like you're a
does Simon Grayson not
club.
like give off like a geography teacher vibe though? He does, mate.
Yeah, he does a bit. Yeah.
Like Mr. Grayson, like coming in and talking about sedimentary rocks and boring you to sleep. I can see that happening. But anyway, we finish off like the last thing because they speak about like teams that spent a lot. Like Middlesbrough spent a lot that summer. Spent over £30 million on strikers alone. That summer, Middlesbrough in the Championship. Wolves were spending serious money. And I thought to myself watching because they were saying about like Sunderland like wanting to invest, and I thought, oh, coming down from the Premier League, I know Ellie Shaw didn't really want to invest, but they might have had some money. And I looked. Sunderland, out of the 24 clubs in the Championship that season, spent the 6th least out of anyone in the division. The only teams who spent less were Bolton Wanderers, who finished just outside the relegation zone, Burton Albion, who went down alongside Sunderland, Preston, who finished 7th, and Millwall, who finished 8th, funnily enough. But I feel like that's more down to the efforts of Neil Harris and Alex Neil, respectively. And QPR, who finished middle in 16th. So, yeah. Like, it's quite unusual for a club to come down and spend that little money in your first season back. Because obviously the aim of every club who's relegated from the Premier League is to get back. The first part of asking, it seems that there wasn't that sort of... and Ellis Short had sort of made the decision, really, to not put any more money into the club, which really hampered Sunderland's chances.
Yeah,
so.
I think... like... not spending money in the Championship sort of killed us because you need quality, especially to get promoted. You know, when you look, I think Wolves, they spent I can't remember how much it was, but they bought like Ruben Neves.
He was 15 million on his own.
They had Ruben Neves and we had Jack Rodwell. Well, fuck. You know,
and probably they were on similar wages. I think, Rodwell probably might have been on more than Neves, and Rodwell wasn't playing, which is a ridiculous thing. But yeah, that rounds off episode 1, and we'll go on to episode 2 swiftly. And if it felt like that, I think that we're going to probably burn through a lot of these episodes now, because I think in episode 1 there's just so much exposition and bulk to get through. So we'll move on to episode 2.
Pulling you back on that, Harvey, though, kind of feel like Ellis Short, he was past the point of Karen by then, though, when he really wanted to get rid of the club. He'd already invested like an absolute fortune, and people saying that 30 million that we got for Pickford and bought all went straight in his back pocket. But at the end of the day, like he put a lot of money into the club previously, and I just think he wasn't getting his return. He was a bit sick, so he just thought, I'm going to pull the plug, and obviously that's what happened, didn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think like when we're in the Premier League and like you put money in, I think it wasn't him, it was the people who he had around him. Because Ellis Short wasn't there as like a footballing person, he was there as like the money man. And like the advice he got from like people sort of sent him in the wrong direction. So I think that's like sort of what took his interest out the club when we went down to the Championship ultimately.
Yeah.
The first away game of the season, definitely.
Yeah, Norwich away, yeah.
Yeah, 3-1, amazing win. Probably up there with results of the season. Like looking back in hindsight, away 3-1 at Norwich. Norwich didn't do brilliantly this season by any means, but still, like it's a good place to go and get a result. And I've wrote here effing crowd cuts because they did it again in this game where they just showed Sol and yeah, I think I mention it every single time, but I'll not rant anymore. And the main theme of this episode seems to be transfers. And this episode's called We Can't Walk Away, by the way. And it's, other than the first episode, which is just like the song, every episode seems to be named after a quote that takes place at some point in the episode. And We Can't Walk Away comes in a meeting that we'll discuss later. And the transfer targets are set out in the graphic as a striker, a central midfielder, a right winger, central defender, and a goalkeeper. And now you'd let go of two goalkeepers in the summer, in Jordan Pickford to Everton and Vito Manone to Reading, which the latter I don't really understand, but it might have been something out of Sunderland fans. I'm not too sure. Jason Steele joined, and they were after another one, and they got one in Robin Reuter, and we meet him on his way to Sunderland. It seems like a nice enough bloke. And his family is with him and stuff. He seems to be ready to go, and then you speak to Jason Steele about this, like he's like getting interviewed at the training ground about a new goalkeeper coming in, and he sounds like he wants to kill him. And I know I've said this a lot about people, but Jason Steele is fuming that they've signed Robin Reuter. Like he said, I shook his hand in the dressing room, and no, I've not really spoke to him. And it's just like, so like, I feel like, are you all right, mate? Like, has he done something to you? Like, so they put a lot of emphasis on. There's only one goal. Obviously, there's only one goalkeeper position, so there's another goalkeeper at the club. Got to try and fight. Got to try and make sure that number one spot is yours. But it just like the animosity just seemed really like tense. I'm like, yeah, they're going to need another goalkeeper, Jason. If you get injured, it's done for. So yeah, Robin Reuter joins, and we go to sort of like a transfer meeting. It seems, or a discussion with Martin Bain. And at the point he's made, only 3 out of Sunderland's last 40 signings at this point turned a profit. Jesus Christ.
Just shows how bad like we've been in recruiting players.
That is not how you recruit players. That is not how you move through a football club. Like, obviously there's a thing like you don't necessarily want to be a selling club. But there's still smart recruitment. Like, well, Southampton are a selling club and they're quite successful. And you want, the key is to get players in for as cheap as possible and to sell them for as high as possible. That's all transfers are, in the very broadest sense. But Sunderland don't seem to have gotten that down, and it's made clear in this that there's a small budget available. And I feel like I've highlighted this here. What is this the reason? Do you feel? I'll go to you first, James. That Simon Grayson was the man because he'd never worked with a necessarily big budget before at any other clubs, and he's had decent results in both League One and the Championship. Do you think that's the reason that Simon Grayson was the man to handle a team with a very unimpressive budget?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, you do wonder if sort of, as Aaron and Adam have said, it's kind of elements of the appointment didn't seem all that logical, maybe, when you consider his experiences and stuff like that. Although, of course, you also wonder whether, I mean, like the term poison chalice is used like at least twice, sort of in later, I think it's in later episodes by fans. So it may have been better appointments, sort of turning it, or better in inverted commas appointments, turning it down. But yeah, I think if you know you've got sort of limited resources and you've got someone who's shown themselves to be adept at dealing with those kind of levels of resources, then it seems logical enough, I suppose. And yeah, and it's one of those where, and I think they go on from there. They sort of, one of their, I can't remember his name, but one of their scouting guys then from there begins to suggest a potentially different policy, doesn't he, on the transfer front, I think, or just sort of in terms of bringing players through and whatnot, and trying to push the age down a bit so that then you develop a slightly more sustainable model. But yeah, that would feel like one of the more logical kind of reasons behind appointing him, definitely.
And I feel like that's the type of manager they're looking for in general. Because I know Simon Grayson, he might have been the key target, but he wasn't the only target. Because as a Sheffield United fan, I remember being slightly worried that Sunderland had approached Chris Wilder in Sheffield United to get him on board at the stadium. Of like, we'd just come up from League One. This was our first season back in the Championship, and there was serious speculation that Wilder would have made the jump. And obviously, different situations, can't say for certain. But you probably thought, given where he and we are now, that might have ended up better, but things worked out the way they did. Simon Grayson was the man that was brought in. And we move on from there, and we're introduced mainly to George Honeyman, who starts giving interviews, says about how important it is for him to be from Sunderland, to get brought into the first team and start playing games. He seems like a very decent... I don't think any of the players, other than maybe a couple that we'll touch on later, none of them really come across badly in this series. The way they speak, they'll speak very well. They all seem... A lot of them seem to genuinely care. And they touch on his relationship with a player who just left Sunderland, Jordan Pickford, having been from the youth teams at similar times, very young age, as they come through the ranks at Sunderland and broken into the first team. And you thought I was done complaining about the editing? I'm not, because they talk about Jordan Pickford and they big him up and they say, and they talk about the World Cup, which, as if it's happened this year coming in, when it doesn't actually happen till the end of this season. Because we're timeline-wise, we're meant to be in August 2017.
Yeah.
And they're showing stuff from June, July of 2018 for Jordan Pickford. And that I didn't really criticise too much, because the show did come out in late 2018. So yeah, fine, that's happened, showcase it. Not really got too much of a problem with that. The thing I had a problem with is they showed Pickford saving the penalty and cut to the celebration of them fans throwing beer about when Trippier scored against Croatia. That's what annoyed me.
Yeah.
Just like, you can't help yourselves. You really can't help yourselves, can you? You can't just find one thing.
I do think you have a future in this area, Harvey. I don't think I don't know.
I think I'm going to be welcomed back in Sunderland after this.
I think it's one of those where, yeah, it's just again, it's one of those that can prove genuinely quite it can prove sort of disruptive to the kind of process. I feel like
this one's a bit more forgivable, because like, it's still England fans like celebrating that World Cup, and they did show clips of like after that game, they showed interviews, and I'm thinking, well, you clearly had footage from there. Just show the celebrations of that place that you got the interviews from. Yeah, show the Trippier thing. Inconsequential in the end. It's fine. Completely fine. I'm not angry. So yeah, they go on. Sunderland beat Bury in the last time these two sides had met in the League Cup, with George Honeyman getting on the score sheet that game. Sunderland go to the next round, and it shows just a rapid-fire group of games. The 2-1 win at Carlisle in the same competition. A 1-1 draw away at Sheffield Wednesday, where George Honeyman gets himself on the score sheet yet again. And a 2-0 home defeat to Leeds. And then it sort of puts a bit more focus and detail on that one, and then puts even more detail on a 3-0 loss to Barnsley. And I think this is where like the documentary is starting to tell the story of, look, we've gone into this season with a lot of optimism, and then in the start of the second episode, it starts to introduce what problems might be at play with the small squad, with the not so big transfer budget, and then sort of shows the results of that within putting more emphasis and more detail on the defeats, which will start to come about a lot more frequently. After this, like the 3-0 game is presented as what it is, as a humiliating defeat, because at that time Barnsley had stayed up by the skin of the teeth the season before. I believe, is that right? Yes, they did. Yeah. I thought they might have come up now. They did stay up the season before. They were tipped as a favourite for relegation this season, which they did end up getting relegated alongside Sunderland this season. But Sunderland got outclassed at this Barnsley side. And Catamol would say after the game that the squad isn't big enough to cope with the league. After it can't be too long removed, like a month removed from him saying, or maybe a bit longer from him saying, promotion, automatic, win the league. Yeah. I just think that's a massive like tonal shift in a short space of time.
100%.
So it's a bit.
The Barnsley game was I think it might be in the 5th game in the season, or it might have been like a few after that. But after that game, it's sort of like you could sort of see like, right, we're not like ready to challenge at the top end of this league, and we're going to struggle. And I think that when we got relegated, everybody sort of like overlooked the squad, like the quality of the squad, and thought, right, we're Sunderland. Yeah, the squad's good. We're going to do well. But when we started playing, we're thinking, right, well, he's not that good. Okay, we've got problems here, and here. How do we stop them? And it just kept continuing, and it snowballed and just plummeted throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see the first few snowballs of what became an avalanche, really, for Sunderland that they unfortunately in the end couldn't overcome. And we go on to another scouting meeting. Well, this is the proper scouting meeting. I think before it was just a discussion with Martin Bain and a few of the recruitment team, where they're discussing some of the options. They seem to have a large player pool in front of them with young Premier League loan players available. You see names like Oviajaria, who would join later in the season. And Martin Bain comes out with one of the best lines in the show. Why am I seeing Ibrahimovic on this list? And I just love the front of whatever scout or recruit put that on. I rate that massively. Like, imagine just being like, yeah, we're near the bottom of the championship, we're having a crap season, we've got need money. Ibrahimovic, I'd be right.
Yeah.
Brings that
So, yeah, we'll get him in.
I think he's been... Oh no, I'm not going to be able to not vision that now. Zlatan walking around Jackie White's market.
Just imagine, like, can you imagine Zlatan on the phone, just like, okay, why do I come to this club? Yeah, Jackie White's, mate, class, top class. Come on, get in.
Amazing Swedish accent.
Oh god.
Why should Zlatan? Because he speaks in the third person, doesn't he? So he just be like, why should Zlatan visit Jackie White's? Oh god, I think that's what they should do for like all new signings now. Instead of giving like the tour of the stadium and stuff, which all football clubs do, take them to Jackie White's market to prove if they're really in touch with the Sunderland like faithful, in touch with this city. Yeah. You're going to move to Durham where you're and drive. This is what real Sunderland is. This is Jackie White's.
Yeah, it's got everything you need down there. You've got Chinese market, you've got a butcher's, you've got an hair salon, you've got a lot like.
Apologies to anyone listening who works in Jackie White's, by the way. We're not trying to criticise it. It's a pinnacle of Sunderland culture. It's getting a lot of investment soon from the council anyway, so Zlatan might pop round, you never know.
The auntie works in there, actually.
You are?
The auntie works in there, actually. She's got one of the waft shops.
I'll get her on the podcast.
If anyone needs any cheap wrist repairs.
The Route 1 podcast episode 3 will be an interview with Aaron's auntie about Jackie White's market. And then two scouts who I'm annoyed at myself here because I didn't write down the names. Go on a trip to Yorkshire, to Lincolnshire, more accurately, to watch Scunthorpe against, who did they play? I can't remember. It was a trip to Scunthorpe. Fleetwood, thank you very much.
Yeah. It was Glyn Snodden and somebody else.
Yeah, this is why we have Sunderland fans on. We get 50% of the facts rather than none. They go to Scunthorpe, and again, this is really me lacking here because I forgot Scunthorpe's ground, and it's really annoying because I do know it.
Can we just call it like
The Scunthorpe?
Shithole United.
How many apologies am I going to have to give out during this podcast, Adam?
Sorry.
It's really annoying because it is just like on the edge of my mind, but I do know it.
I've cheated and looked it up. It's Glamford Park.
Glamford Park, of course it is. See, I've been like a few times before, so I should know. But I just completely forgot. Anyway, they go there it seems the way the camera shows the game, but with this editing, I suppose you never fucking know. It looks like they're there to watch Dwayne Holmes. And the only things we get shown is one of the scouts moaning about him wearing gloves. I think this just shows how dated Sunderland's recruitment is, especially at this stage, where you're paying for a scout to go on, get a report on this player. You're paying him to do that. That's his job. And all he does, it's not even cold. It's not even cold. It's not even gloves. It's not even cold. He's like, oh, Jesus Christ. He couldn't be more Yadar if you tried. Like, and Dwayne Holmes, who Derby would eventually sign, and he's doing pretty well at Derby, and he's there flipping like, we can get better. It's not even cold. We can get better. It's not even cold.
I wonder if these are the two scouts who got sent to watch Marcus Maddison, and they said, you didn't want Marcus Maddison. Scotland.
Oh, God.
I guess maybe it's an example. Presumably, there were probably some redundancies in the scouting department, perhaps after the relegation, potentially, and that may be something that's cut back because their main scouting guy, I'm guessing, it's either within this episode or the first episode, talks about being literally one of the only sort of people they've got to go to, doesn't he? Like, does he mention someone? Did you have someone in Europe? Or was he literally the only one? I might be thinking of someone else.
I think I do have an idea of what you're talking about. I can't remember it specifically, but he does mention having like someone abroad.
Yeah, I feel like there's someone, but either way, it's obvious that sort of it's had to be sort of cut back quite considerably, and and unfortunately, I suppose inevitably that decreases the efficiency with which they're able to recruit.
Yeah, I think they don't look. I'm not trying to make a comment on the rage or anything, but they don't look the type to properly take data into account when they're and have multiple spreadsheets up when they're watching a player. But yeah, I think like Dwayne Holmes would have been a good signing. Like you brought Callum McManaman in this window, and you better than him as a winger or as an attacking midfield option. Like Dwayne Holmes is a great player, a great young player as well. Would have been. And even if you did go down and then have to get rid of him, it'd have been a good asset to get yourself some money back on. So, I don't know. Maybe at the time you weren't able to afford him anyway, but yeah, it's just the way it goes sometimes. Wouldn't have been on a high wage anyway. But we move on from that to a local sponsors meeting. And I was going to spend some time talking about this, but I don't really think it's necessary because basically what you get from this is the local sponsors, who are all, of course, Sunderland fans as well, frustrated at the trajectory of the club because why wouldn't they be? And Martin Bain just flat out says that just Ellis Shaw can't be asked anymore. He's put the money in that he's willing to, as Aaron mentioned earlier. He's not going to be putting any more in, and it's just sort of like an awkward tension type feeling. And yeah, I think it just sort of gives a bit of a trajectory to where this is going. I think it's just telling the fans, look, like this isn't going to be easy, and it's probably not going to be very good. And
sets a tone for the rest of the season, doesn't it?
You can see people clearly aren't happy. Yeah, and it goes on, and then we're in deadline day, first of two deadline day sections of this season, with the summer one first, and of course we hear Jim White's annoying shrill voice again. But one of the main targets that Sunderland looked at getting in was Joseph Mendes, who at the time was Reading Portuguese centre forward, was And I think this really shows, to be honest, where Sunderland were in terms of recruitment at this stage, because he was second string even already. He wasn't really scoring much. Does anyone know where he is now?
Not a clue.
I do, but I'll just let you guess if you don't know.
I won't cheat in that case.
I don't know why I'm saying yes, because like you'll not get it. Is it the I always pronounce it wrong. I know it's the French team. Ajaccio?
Yeah.
Is it their B team? It's not even in their first team. It's the B team.
Oh, right, okay.
3 years removed. Not even 3 years yet. So yeah, you might have dodged a bullet on that one. But players that were brought in, Mark Wilson was brought in from, was he at Bournemouth or Stoke at this point?
I think it was Stoke. I think.
Yeah.
Mark Wilson was brought in along with the aforementioned Callum McManaman. And then the nicest man in football, Johnny Williams. I love this bloke. I adore this bloke. The entire time, this series, all I cared about was Johnny Williams more than anything. What a man. Yeah, he joins. He looks thrilled too. Simon Grayson's really happy to have him in. He's an exciting player. He's had experience in the Welsh national team. His career's been defined by loan spells, really. He seems to have been at Palace for years, and he's just been out at Ipswich and MK Dons and different places like that. He always tipped as one of those players that might just break the next level, but injuries, I think, got in the way more than anything, as we'll see just going into the next episode as well.
You just want to see him do well, don't you? Really, with sort of all the things he says and stuff, you just end up, you do get a sense that he just seems like a really genuine guy. But Mark Wilson was at Bournemouth.
He was at Bournemouth at that time.
Yeah.
And the situation comes up where it looks like Ross McCormack might be available to bring in on deadline day, but the deal doesn't end up getting done. Of course, Ross McCormack, a favourite of Simon Grayson's, he managed him in his first real breakout spell when he was at Leeds before he got that big money move to Fulham. Fulham had a great spell with them and another big money move to Villa, which didn't quite work out the same. Ended with the infamous story of Steve Bruce going round to his house. He didn't turn up for training one day, and he said because his gate was shut and he couldn't get out of his house. He went to his house and climbed over the gate, and he was like, "What are you doing?" That's one of my favourite football stories of the past few years. And Grayson clearly not happy about this. He says like if a player like that's available, you get the deal done. Yeah. And Martin Bain sort of rebuttals that with, and I think this is a sort of cruel bit of foreshadowing, accidental foreshadowing, obviously, for season 2 with the Will Griggs saga, where Martin Bain says the wrong thing to do is to plug gaps and splash cash. So, take from that what you will, Stuart McDonald.
To be fair, at that point in time, with the situation with the club, I think Bain was right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, McCormack's a good player, but do you want to spend that much money for him to maybe not work? And it's like
he'd probably only be on loan anyway, and you'd probably be playing fee to just get him on loan. And at that point, he was deemed away. He was out of the Villa squad because he was off in Australia like at points. Like he fizzled out at this point. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But that rounds off episode 2, ending on a bit of a downer, saying that they didn't quite have the deadline day they wanted, but still brought in 3 players. And episode 3 begins Plastic Shoes, this one is called. And we begin just with a compilation of angry fans, and that just takes us into the song, and that was just a nice, lovely scene setter. And we go in, and it's Johnny Williams and Mark Wilson's arriving at the ground, and we go in towards another game, and where there's fans outside. One of the fans says, on paper, that team is good enough for promotion. Right. I know he's saying on paper.
Imagine.
I know he's saying on paper, but I still disagree.
Yeah.
At that point, that team was very good. Because that team had been like, because you say you still had some Premier League players, yes, but the core of that team that Allardyce had, because like Moyes was sort of like the transition year into this. But I was like, the core of that had been gutted completely. Like Defoe's not there anymore, and he was the one who was singing. Kazri's not there. Like you've got like, defenders who aren't really playing as often. Like you've like goalkeepers have gone. Like it's not the same team. You've just got a few ones that you couldn't offload, and an aging Lee Cattermole. And I like Lee Cattermole. I still think Cattermole was a decent midfielder for the division, and you brought in a couple of decent signings, but it's a mid-table championship side at best. It probably shouldn't have gone down.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was good enough for promotion.
Goalkeepers let us down more, didn't they, more than anything else?
Oh, your goalkeeper situation. We'll come on to that when we come to like January. Well, I've got something noted here about him, but yeah, because after this game, I promise I won't dwell. I've not noted it down. You play Sheffield United at home. You lose 2-1. Conveniently left out that Jack Rodwell scores in this game. By the way, very conveniently left out. It's very much clear how they want to frame. I know that wouldn't have been a massively positive thing anyway, because he still lost, but it's clear how they want to frame Jack Rodwell in this series. They leave that out pretty intentionally. Clayton Donaldson masterclass back into very good goals, if you ask me, but I digress. And again, from this, there's a note on this one I've made as well. They play commentary from the game against Derby at the start of the season. Piss off. And then we go in, and Steele is complaining about sort of like the setup and how the goalkeepers are informed of who's going to start. Because I think you lose 1-0 to Forest as well. And Reuter's saying, like, I got a text from the goalkeeping coach like a couple of hours before kickoff saying, like, I'm going to play when I wasn't expecting to. Like, surely you should always expect to play. Like, I know like the management style wasn't brilliant, but like, if as a goalkeeper, how prepared do you actually have to? Yeah, obviously very prepared, but like, it can't be that much of a shock if, as a goalkeeper, someone says like, you're playing. It's not as if like a centre half, say like in training all week, you've not been like shown like the opposition striker's movement and how you're supposed to track him and the threats that they've got. In that, you're a goalkeeper, your job's the same every single week. So I feel like they're just being a bit stroppy here, to be honest, but that might just be me. And the goalkeepers union might want to lynch me for that, I don't know.
I think it did seem, sort of watching it, it felt a bit sort of unconventional the way they've been, because it seemed like it was just a few hours before, didn't it, and stuff, and you wonder what that does to kind of, I guess it keeps both of them on their toes, if nothing else. That's maybe a positive of it, but it also, like, Steele probably feels like he's had the carpet sort of pulled from under him, and then obviously when it's, as you say, as a player, whether you're sort of on the fringes or not, sort of, you often hear players, particularly in the Premier League, talking about sort of mentality and all that kind of stuff. It might be sort of for the cameras or whatever, but they do always talk about being sort of having that mindset and being ready to play. So as you say.
Also, I think one thing I'd say with I say the least disrespect intended to both of the goalkeepers, but it will be quite disrespectful. If both of your goalkeepers are doing shit, it's going to be quite hard to decide which one to play.
Then just bring in a shitter one, you know what I mean? Like, more interesting.
Yeah, because then you lose 5-2 to Ipswich away, and Steele's the player that gets interviewed after this match, and he's like, "Well, I didn't know I was playing." That's not an excuse for conceding 5 to Ipswich.
One of the goals he conceded as well. One of the goals he conceded against Ipswich, it was like the striker was running through and he went round Steele, and Steele just like dives like across. You're thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, he fully jumps across, and the striker just walks around him and puts it in. You think, for God's sake.
Some of the goals in that game would have been around the hour mark and like stuff like that. I'll actually get it up. I'll get that game up and I'll have a look where the goal times were. Right. Give me 2 seconds. So Ipswich 5, Sunderland 2. Let's have a look. Right, 6th minute. Oh, you might have been a bit taken by surprise then because you didn't know you were going to play. Fine. But then 3 goals come. Oh, James has left. We'll see him back in a moment, I'm sure. But then 55th minute, 60th minute, 89th minute. I'm pretty sure you knew you were playing at that point. Like, I don't feel like it's an excuse. Here it is. He's back. All's good in the world again. James is back.
I do apologise.
But yeah, I just feel like the goalkeepers being a bit stroppy, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion.
I feel like they could have brought a How to Beat Sunderland book out that season. and it would have literally only had to be 1 page long, and it would have just had the word shoot written on it, because like no matter if you shot from 30 yards out, 10 yards out, 50 yards out against Jason Steele or Robin Reuter or even Lee Camp for that matter, it was gambling. Like they weren't saving it. Like I don't think they've ever played as a goalkeeper in their careers before they played at Sunderland. It's just fucking backwards.
I feel like I don't even think you have to get that complicated. I honestly think that book, it wouldn't be a book. It'd be like one of those unraveling bits of paper, and it'd just say "have legs."
Shoot.
Sunderland weren't good this season at all, and after this game, it gets brought up the atrocious home record that Sunderland had. I don't actually know, because before this season, what was the last game that you won at home? It's like nearly a year. I think it's like just under a year that you go, isn't it, without a win?
Yeah.
So it was December 2016, wasn't it? Or...
I think so, yeah. Probably around that time. The last time. Like
would have been someone like Palace or somebody. I'll have a look.
Our resident researcher James Noble was on the case, I think. Yeah, I think if I'm guessing, I'd have had mine in a Stoke. I don't know how right that is, though.
So last home game we won was Watford.
So yeah, Adam, you're right. It's Watford at home. The last time you'd won up until this point at the Sol, and then it's just sort of questioning of the manager really starts at this point. Meeting with fans, they mentioned, can this man definitely be the person to take this club forward? Martin Bain doesn't give any guarantees, which you wouldn't expect him to. But it moves into a game that's massively bigged up, which is a one we've discussed already, away at Griffin Park, but we've not discussed it for the footballing reasons, which we will this time, I promise. Brentford away, which, well, we will footballing reasons, but just one thing, this isn't even editing. I'll say this now. I really like Nick Barnes and Gary Bennett, but this is a stupid line. At the start of the game, I really like those two, right? So before anyone comes at me, I think they're good commentators, brilliant commentators. Gary Bennett's a really nice person. Don't kill me. But Nick Barnes says, Brentford are at home, by the way, and obviously he's on radio, so he's got to describe it. He's like, oh, Sunderland playing in, were they in blue this game?
Light blue.
Yeah. Sunderland in the light blue, and confusingly, Brentford are in the red and white. Why is that confusing? They're at home. They're playing red and white. Are they meant to wear the away kit at home? I know this is me being really nitpicky, but that's so stupid. Confusing. Imagine Sunderland were at home, and you heard like a commentator from another radio say, like, if we played Sunderland, well, confusingly, Sunderland are wearing red and white. I don't think they've ever done that before. Anyway, actually,
it's a bad take. It is. It's a bad take.
Sorry, Nick. Really good.
Again,
I hate Brent game. Sorry, go on, Peter.
So it's again an endorsement that we're sort of nitpicking to such an extent.
Yeah. I have something written about Gary Bennett, but I feel like I won't say it now. It's a bit later on. It's not in this episode. But,
I was going to say the Brentford game was a mess.
Yeah, go 1-0 down pretty early on. Get back on level terms. Was it penalty put you 2 or 3-1?
Yeah.
3-1, I think.
Because the equaliser, Daniel Bentley punches a corner into his own net.
Yeah.
Then Graben gets 1-on-1 finish as well, 2-1, and then the penalty makes it 3-1. And you're loving life. Like, they've got really good shots of the fans in this game, actually, at Griffin Park. And they're celebrating and like seeming really good spirits. Yeah. And it's going well. And like at half time they're all like dancing and singing and that. And what happens in the second half?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I was at the game as well.
If you were at it, you can talk through the second half, Skinny.
Well, basically, the second half showed why Sunderland went down. Because we're shit. Pretty much. What annoys us about...
That's the only bit this is all this podcast's going to be. It's just that. What you said there.
But, the bit that annoyed us about that game was Brentford pulled one back for 3-2, and it was like a couple of minutes later they got a free kick, and it was like, it was sort of like on the left of the D, and the wall was like there, and then Steele was the other side, and he sort of like ran across, and the Brentford player just put it where Steele was.
Yeah,
and, like,
where he originally was standing.
it was just like, oh, pin.
It was. They show a weird camera angle of it on this, so you can't really quite make out. It looks like it takes a deflection when you watch it on the documentary. So, like, I went and watched the actual highlights, and I was like, oh no, he just moves.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's goalkeeping 101 though, isn't it? Like, you have
Yeah.
your wall, and then you stand on the other side of your wall, because
Yeah.
your wall will stop the ball getting there. You know what I mean? But no, he has his wall, he's standing there.
Yeah.
He's basically just going, if you dare, you have fair play. All right, well done.
Put it there, lads. Put it there.
Yeah.
It's like, if the free kick taker puts it over the wall, top corner, then fair enough.
Yeah, crap.
Great goal, can't do anything. But the fact that he put it on the keeper's side and he moved, it's just like annoying. Give me
Very, very frustrating. Very
Brings us
frustrating.
back to my point that I don't think Jason Steele has ever played as a goalkeeper in his life. Like, I don't know where they know where they're going from, but I don't know where they've got that lad from. Like,
He's a Premier League player now.
Yeah.
how?
He's a bronze.
And Lee Camp's a championship player, but how? How does this
To
happen?
be fair, I'm going to talk about it when we get to it later. Lee Camp actually, he's still got a clanger in him, but like Birmingham fans actually really like him. Like, he's actually done a job with Birmingham.
Just shows confidence can do, doesn't it? I suppose, and whether it's like obviously only they know themselves, but it makes such a big difference, and especially for goalkeepers, so much time to just sort of mull over things going wrong. I guess.
When they had just signed him, though, I was saying something quite hilarious on Twitter. It was like backgrounds from Birmingham Football Club, and like one of them was of Lee Camp, and one of the Birmingham fans had commented on it saying, "Oh, can someone send us that Lee Camp one? I'm trying to get it, but it won't save." And I just thought that was hilarious. Like,
Very good. All right, 3 points absolutely chucks away Griffin Park. Where it seemed like a win was, well, Nick Bonds even said himself, like, when the third goal went in from Graben, he said, "Oh well, they put the game to bed before half time," and I'm like, "Oh, commentators curse proper in full effect there." Then for Simon Grayson, 1-3-3 draw, shame on you. 2 3-3 draws, shame on me. As he drew 3-3 against Bolton at home, and that proves to be Simon Grayson's last game in charge of Sunderland. Another strange fixture at home to Bolton, with the way the scoring went and the tonal shift and everything. And Martin Bain seemed to make a pretty swift decision after this game. That even though it looked like you were on the brink of losing this game after having it in your hands, but rescued a point with a last-minute equaliser. A swift decision was made. The shortest serving manager in the club's history has said, just a pretty down way to end episode 3. But I suppose just got to tell it how it is. And Grayson. I think Grayson seems quite like he knows he went wrong when they interviewed him afterwards and stuff. And I feel like it was the right decision. But at this point, I'm sure we'll get on to the problem runs a lot deeper than managers. This club, I feel like this club was doomed to whoever was at the.
I don't know if you know this, but Grayson didn't keep a clean sheet at Sunderland.
Did he not?
Really?
Nah.
Wow,
Didn't keep
I
a clean
didn't
sheet.
know that. Is that just in the league or just in general?
In the league.
Yeah, because I think did you beat Bury 1-0?
Yeah, beat Bury 1-0 in the cup.
Yeah.
But in the league, didn't keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, defensively very poor, and to be fair, that wouldn't really get too much better throughout the season as we go into episode 4, which is not on that sheet of paper, that's exam notes. Unless we just do a public affairs podcast, I'm sure people will love that. We're going into episode 4. Yeah, big up Neil Mack if you are listening to this. Oh, yeah. Episode 4. Rocking and rolling. As it's touched on because the podcast that they refer to, which the first time I watched this was quite confusing to me because the only Sunderland podcast I knew of was the Roker Report, which gets featured later, which Connor Bromley, we all know him, worked at the university with us for our first year. Currently works at Sunderland Football Club now. Doing very well for himself, but was heading up Rookie Report. And I didn't know that the Wise Men Say podcast was a thing, but apparently it is. And that's what we get to hear from the people who host this podcast at Sun FM. They talk about how what I mentioned basically earlier, saying the club has a problem deeper than managers, and I feel that's pretty self-evident with just looking where Sunderland are now, like with the amount of managers they've gone through. You can even say the last 5 years, never mind the last 10. Just a constant turnover, and never a sense of stability. Unlucky at times, like maybe you could have got a bit of stability with Allardyce. But even then, I don't think Allardyce is a really long-term appointment. He's going to do you a job for a season or so, and then things are going to get a bit tricky after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're showing a butchers for some reason. Just a local butchers. There's some fans seem to be having a grand old time at the football club. Seem to be enjoying the job though, so good on him. We get Joyce Roma, one of the chefs at the club, another one of my favourite people in this series. She's lovely, and. They drove me to drink last night. I said, poor Joyce. But yeah, she seems a very upbeat person. I forgot the bloke's name, the other chef, but he seems like a really nice fella as well.
Yeah.
He's a bit more low key. Yeah, the Italian guy. He seems a bit more low key, where Joyce is a very, very bubbly personality, I think it's fair to say. Yeah.
Both
go on.
They're just very kind of genuine, aren't they, really, I suppose? And
yeah, of course.
You can see by how warmly they're received by just everyone, really. But
yeah.
Drinking on a school night wasn't a good sign.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she doesn't usually drink on a school night. That's what she said, wasn't it? And Robbie Stockdale takes a temporary charge while Martin Bain has gone out shopping for a new manager. And the game that he takes charge of is away. Did he take charge of any other games just before? Oh no, it was this and a home game as well. Because after Chris Coleman was appointed, Millwall.
Yeah, Millwall. I remember the Millwall game. Yeah.
Millwall.
Yeah, we'll get to the Millwall game because that was weird. But Borough away, and it's bigged up as a derby. And from the outside looking in, I've never really considered Middlesbrough and Sunderland a derby. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It's not a derby. It's just like we don't have the same not connection, but hatred. Like for Newcastle.
Hatred's the right word. Do you reckon this is like a substitute for Newcastle since you're not in the Premier League anymore in terms of the documentary?
It was never even a derby, mate, at the end of the day.
Yeah, not from the fans' perspective, but sort of from the documentary maker's perspective. Do you reckon it was like, we need some sort of like tension game? There's no Newcastle, Middlesbrough's like the closest thing.
Yeah,
and to be fair, it's not them alone that does that. Yeah, because like Sky always big it up as a derby and stuff whenever it's played, so I don't think sole blame can be laid with the documentary makers. But good job it isn't a proper derby because you lost. 1-0 away at Middlesbrough. Sunderland go bottom now. And it's Peter Farrer he looks really sad after this game, and that just made me sad. I don't like seeing Peter Farrer upset. Peter Farrer is a lovely man who deserves to be happy all the time. And also before this game, we meet. I don't know if this is the first time you meet him, but it's the first time you probably sit down with Andrew Camis, who's a Sunderland supporter with his family. That he seems to be indoctrinated, which is lovely because he calls his son Niall after Niall Quinn, and he's got a massive Sunderland tattoo down his arm, which actually looks pretty good. And I think all these kids are somehow naming-wise, somehow influenced by Sunderland. And I just noticed that his wife just stays silent throughout all of this. It's sort of like a plea for help. It's like, he's taken over the family. Can someone assist me, please? Sorry, Andy, you seem like a lovely bloke.
Samaritan's helpline is at the bottom of the screen. I feel bad for bringing it up now. Sorry, Andy. Cut that out.
No, it'll be fine. I've got it written down somewhere later on that he seems a nice bloke, so yeah. Give him both sides of it.
It's very clear they all care, isn't it?
Oh yeah, massively. And the kids don't seem too phased by being called it, so. I've written here, word for word what I've written, top shagger Chris Coleman appointed, because the first 5 minutes shown in this documentary is just women swooning for him. He's a decent looking bloke, Chris Coleman. I'm not afraid to admit that. He's not a bad looking fella. There's certainly worse looking football managers about. I mean, like Simon Grayson looked like Casper the Friendly Ghost. So like Chris Coleman's a bit of an upgrade from him. So yeah, and I can't remember. I don't know if it was I don't think Peter Farrell said this, but some fan said it. There's a quote saying, "I'd rather catch my missus in bed with Coleman than with a window cleaner." And I thought, "How brilliant!"
Yeah, yeah, that was some line. That
epitomises the spirit. Just like, you know what? Would not mind if he slept with my wife. That's how much I approve him as manager of my football club. And the female staff are quite happy about it as well. And there's a female supporter who says, "Oh, me and my friends are delighted, especially my lady friends are delighted." So everyone just wants a bit of the Chris Coleman jockey bar, don't they? Like, they're all after it. So he's a very popular man at first, at least. And also, my favorite Chris Coleman thing in this entire series is when he's getting introduced to the staff and the officers stuff at the Stadium of Light. And I don't think you catch a name, but one woman kindly asked, "Would you like to take part in Secret Santa?" And you see the dread take over him. He's like, "Oh, shit." It's like, obviously not. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do a Secret Santa. It's awful. And then he just looks down, sees chocolate, and he finds it out, and he's just like, "Well, I would like to take part." And he says, "There's chocolate. There's chocolates. Oh, I would like to take part." And then he's like, "Oh, Freddos. Oh, I love these." And he just acts more excited about Freddos than anyone's acted in their life about Freddos.
I bet he didn't even like Freddos, mate. It was just an easy way to convert.
If they were like fishermen. Yeah.
Oh shit! I love a bit shit.
To get out of Secret Santa, and I've rated it so much. Brilliant. And I was like, "How do you reckon you're going to get away with that on camera, mate?" This is going out to millions of people. But fair play, he seems to manage it. And then we go to the aforementioned weird game against Millwall, where it's the worst game of goalkeeping I have ever seen in my entire life. Steele's not in for this one, not surprisingly. But then Robin Roy has chosen to take his place. And he concedes the same goal twice.
Yeah.
The exact same goal.
Oh, it was awful. It was a free kick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Over one, just punches it in. Oh my god.
Every time he drops in the exact same place, he always gets something on it. And to be fair, at the other end, his name's Jordan Archer. That's who was in goal for Millwall. He didn't have the best days either. He puts off one of the most unorthodox. I nearly called it a safety. It's not a safety. It went in.
Yeah.
Like, cross comes in. It's not a shot. It's a cross. And he jumps into his net backwards, has his fists out like that, and punches it towards the net. What are you doing? I can't remember the other clanger he dropped. What was the other one?
I don't think he did. I think it was just the one. No, I don't think he did.
I remember, wasn't it like?
He might have.
I feel like there was a goal like from a corner that he just like sort of.
I'm sure it went into the straight in from a corner. No?
Yeah, that's what I think it was. Yeah, and he just sort of missed.
I think it might have been the corner came in. He sort of just misjudged it, and I think Graben came in at the back post and just tapped it in.
Yeah, I think that might be it.
That was it.
Yeah, so just a not a great advert for goalkeepers that day at all. And Johnny Williams gets injured, and I'm crying. I weren't happy about this because Chris Coleman's he comes in, and one of the things he's dead excited about is having Johnny Williams because he had him in Wales, he had him at the Euros. They're all good Welsh mates, and he gets injured straight away, dislocates his shoulder or whatever it was. Not fair. Give us more Johnny Williams on the pitch. Not fair. But very unfortunate for the young lad. Like he's a great footballer. He seems like a lovely lad as well. Yeah, but Chris Coleman injects a bit of positivity into the club. A 2-0 win away at Burton, and he gives a bit of passion to the fans, and the fans seem to be very receptive. He highlights the potential in youth, and highlights you've got to be careful with players like Josh Badger and Joel Asora and integrating them, and they will become a more important feature of the squad moving forward. And you might have some opinions on what Joel Asoro did after, but for the time being, he's seen as one of the bright stars coming through at Sunderland. And everyone just seems dead chuffed, to be honest, is what I've got written down here, because they do. The mood seems to be lifted after that Burton game. And yeah, it just seems well. And then gets even better because you win at home Sunderland win a football match at home. They beat Chris Coleman's former side and a side that would get promoted this season, Fulham, by a 0-0. Josh Madger, who said he had to put in carefully, comes on, scores a really nice goal. And it doesn't look that hard, does it, winning at home? But apparently it is, since it took us nearly a year.
Yeah, it was a good win for Sunderland, because like after we won, we saw like there was quite a few fans thought, right, maybe we can kick on and we can start winning games. And Coleman's like he injected like a lot of positivity in the team, and he changed the vibe around the place for a small period of time, but it didn't last, unfortunately.
No,
but
unfortunately.
That win was good. I enjoyed that. But
yeah, and we close off the episode with good old Joyce back again. This time saying, "I had 2 vodkas last night, so when they lose, she drinks, and they win, she drinks. Win or lose, Joyce is on the booze. You'd love to see it." And yeah, just a lovely little bit from her there. And that moves us lovely into episode number 5, which is called Sticking Plasters. And just starts with a lovely little Chris Coleman and Kit Simons having a nice little date on Roker Beach instead. Quite nice. Go to a coffee shop. They just seem to be having a lovely time. And shots of them playing head tennis with Kevin Ball and was it Webby Stockdale or was it someone else? Don't know. But probably. They look like they're having fun. Martin Baines watching along, looking like he's planning his next terror attack, but he's enjoying himself. And they're all having a lovely time at Sunderland Football Club now. Chris Coleman's at the helm. What? I said he looked like a Bond villain. That's the condition. Not insinuating anything else. Jason Statham was a bad guy in the Fast and Furious films for a bit. What Bond villains commit terror attacks?
We've escalated very quickly.
Terror attacks are a thing. Right, anyway. If you're going to worry about being monetized, one, we're not getting monetized anyway, and we've said fuck about 5 times, so that's never a chance of that. I mean, being terror attacking the harmless chances. Anyway, they talk about a positive. These are my 2 first bullet points I've got here. A positivity reset at the club. Then they lose to Barnsley. So, not great. But Barnsley do the double over Sunderland. Get a 1-0 win at the Stadium of Light. And Gibson's presented here is like really important, Darren Gibson. And is this the game that he gets injured?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, because he was a good footballer. And Coleman clearly, I think he was sort of exiled out of Grayson's squad after his outburst at the pub. And Coleman wanted to bring him back into the fold, but unfortunately didn't really get to use him due to a mistimed injury. And I think you could have done with someone of, Gibson's quality in the middle. So bit unfortunate, but it's not the greatest situation for Sunderland to be in, and you're going into a transfer window now in January, and Graben leaves, which is a huge, well, not really a turning point because you're already in an unfortunate situation, but sort of kick in the teeth. He leaves because Bournemouth are wanting to bring him back so they can sell him. They want to cash in on the 12 goals he's got so far at Sunderland. So they bring him back thinking they're selling him to Wolves. So I feel like that was the deal that was, and then it got like thrown off the table with agreements for the fee and whatnot. But just, do you think this is the sort of, not the final nail in the coffin, but almost the thing that says, okay, yeah, now you're definitely in a dogfight, Aaron?
I'd say it. So I mean, I still haven't really forgiven him. Like, I mean, I understand it from his point of view. Like, obviously, Gandon, obviously, it was a lot deeper than him just getting sold onto a bigger club or whatever. It was kind of you're seeing it coming. Like, in the documentary, shows that very well. Like, he's getting 70 minutes rather than the full 90. And he's getting frustrated that he's not getting like a full slice of the cake, so to speak. But I feel like if we had grabbed him for the rest of the season, then maybe it wouldn't have been as embarrassing. I'd probably want to say, because I mean we were getting relegated either way. Truth be told, like we weren't stopping up with that team. But maybe he could have got a couple more goals for us and made a bit more justifiable than just like fucking off and leaving us in the shit. I suppose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but can't say that, Aaron. Yeah, you're probably right.
The difference between saying fuck and shit and terror attack, Harvey.
One of them's not a swear word. So we move on. It's unfortunate. But then, even though he did not have the prettiest spell on Wearside by any means, James Vaughan is sold. And now you've just not got a centre forward. Like, you've got Josh Madger, who at this point is a kid who's made like 2 or 3 appearances. But you've just literally sold the only 2 centre forwards you have. Like, I don't get the thinking there. Even though James Vaughan, probably not a great centre forward for Championship level by any means. If he's the only one you've got, you don't sell him. And you've only had him for both of those strikers you've only had for 6 months, and now they're both gone.
It just shows how poor things will run, doesn't it?
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, but we're moving from something incredibly negative into something incredibly positive, because it's up there. To be fair, my 2 favourite quotes are both in this episode. The first one is the youth team decide to play a little bit of a prank on the first team when they walk in from one building to another because it's been snowing. So they pelt them with snowballs. Nice little bit of fun. The rest of the players just seem to be getting on with it. McGeady having absolutely none of it. He walks through, embarrassing, gimps. Just like, yes, pure content. You love to see Aidan McGeady mugging him off. Like, just none of them hit him as well. Like, how bad of a shot are 20 of these kids who were just launching snowballs at him, and none of them hit him.
One nearly gets him by the door, don't they? I think.
Yeah, he looks impressed. He looks genuinely impressed when one just flies by his front, and he's like, "Oh, no, it's not bad that actually."
Yeah. It was just a nice moment though, because it felt so kind of organic and.
And based off this season, that's probably the calmest you see Aidan McGeady on the training ground, but that's another story for a different day. And there's a bit of community spirit shown at Stadium of Light with the snow making training not possible at the academy. So you get plenty of people from the club, including Coleman and Simons, helping clear the pitch at the Sol, which is a good thing. And then this talk of Chris Martin joining, because we spoke about strikers leaving out the door, and Chris Martin, an experienced Championship striker, he was on a bit of a downturn at this point, but still, when you've not got a striker, he's a pretty good option to have. And that leads me into, this is all the business you make in this window. So you let James Vaughan go to Wigan for 300 grand. Didier and Dong went out on loan to Watford for the remainder of the season. Lewis Graben returned to Bournemouth and then would eventually go out on loan to Aston Villa, so he wouldn't even be sold like Bournemouth wanted to do, and that's the reason they recalled him. And Darren Gibson's departure comes a bit later down the line, and we'll get to that. The Inns, your 4 loan players, and one that I actually wasn't aware of until rewatching it this time. I didn't know you brought in Jake Clark-Salter from Chelsea, the young centre half, the London Under 21 captain currently. I wasn't aware of that until rewatching it now. Lee Camp comes in on loan from Cardiff. Good old Lee Camp. He was brilliant, wasn't he? Ovie Ejaria goes on loan from James's sporting club, Liverpool. And Ashley Fletcher, probably the one that gets focused on the most, comes in on loan from bitter rivals Middlesbrough. It's just a good favourite then, that team you've got Derby with, sending you a player on there. And you bring in Kazenga Lawar on a free from Brighton. So it's just like you have brought players in, none of them very ambitious. It just seems like if you can get them, do it. That's what the business seems to be. Were you very inspired at the time, Adam?
Yeah, it was just like when they came in, it was just sort of like, all right, we're just sort of filling in the gaps. Like, they're not very ambitious players, and we needed to stay up. We needed squad depth. I don't know. I wasn't really excited when they came in, to be honest, because they're not going to set the world alight. I don't know, to be honest. It was just like, we've signed someone. Normally when we sign players, we've signed him, he looks good. When we sign these, I was thinking, all right, okay, maybe he could do something, but doesn't sound too promising, which it wasn't.
No. And Chris Martin doesn't end up going over the line. The agent They don't seem to get something sorted. Morning Bain gets quite cross about it. Chris,
she didn't want to move, but they did share.
yeah, because they wanted to discuss it. He wanted to discuss it with his family, didn't he? And I think that was they would have been. Well, they went to Reading, and with him being a Derby at the time, I'd imagine they'd have been around Derby, like in the Midlands, in Derbyshire, so or in and around there. And Reading's like pretty much just as much of a trek down than Sunderland is a trek up. So it must have just been they prefer the south, so Reading's to him. And there's a defeat at Birmingham that comes afterwards at St Andrews 3-1. Right. Poor, just a poor, like just a show of what sort of state this Sunderland side's in. And we go back to Peter Farrer, the main man, and there's a cheeky little shot while he's establishing shot, and Vesta Tillys is in the background, our lovely pub of choice when we go to watch a football match. Great place. And while he's driving over St Peter's Bridge, this and the McGeady one are like joint top of my favourite quotes in this series. But he's driving along and he's saying, wasn't even a match report in the Daily Mail on Monday. Not a line, Tory bastard. Peter, you lovely bloke. I love you so much. I love Peter Farrer with all my heart. Not a line, Tory bastard.
Yeah.
C'est magnifique. Thank you, Peter. And then it cuts to like fans, and the episode is seen off with at least two fans speaking direct to camera and saying, "Tell Ellis Short to fuck off." And yeah, pretty much. But thing is, the way they say it is if the cameraman has control over it. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go upstairs to Ellis, show him, and he's going to be like, oh, fucking hell, may as well. I understand the frustration.
He said it, huh?
Yeah.
David, 37, from Hendon, told me to fuck off. All right, fair enough. See you later.
I'm going back
to
Texas. I'm done.
Oh, God. Yeah, it seemed a bit of a... Well, I do understand where the frustration's coming from. I'm like, you do realise that's not going to do it, but... Cause, one, this isn't going to be seen until after he's gone. So, that finishes off episode 5. We'll just try and blitz through the next episode here, episode 6. No guarantees, because it's not an uneventful episode, but it gets quite to the nitty gritty straight away with the Bristol City away game. It's where we start, and it just looked like a calamity at first. Like we're both at Ashton Gate and with Andrew Cammett in his living room listening to the radio, and it's 3-0 by half time to Bristol City, and it's an absolute annihilation. Lee Camp's having a bit of a stinker in between the sticks for Sunderland, so the form for the goalkeepers doesn't really improve this season. And it seems... What was that? Speak up?
Shock.
It's not great. It's not great at all. Andy Camis just seemed quite apathetic during this game, like 3-0 down, away from home. He's not angry. He says himself, like, I'm used to it. Like, I shouldn't. It's not all right that I should be used to it, but I just am. I think that was just the turn for a lot of Sunderland fans. But not everyone at Ashton Gate was apathetic. As some, I've written down here, and I was going to like pretty this language up that I actually wrote down. But I'm going to just write down what I put in the bullet point. 3-0 at half time, and some absolute twat breaks a camera. Like, what an arsehole. Oh my God. I get what, look, we're all massive football fans, and with being a football fan comes a massive emotional attachment to your team, and it does anger you when you see him not performing how you want to. But why? Like, because he points at him and he's like, oh, get away with that camera. He's just doing his job. Like, and he's, I don't know what can possess persons to just go and break it and feel like you've done like a valiant thing and you've done the right thing. Like, oh, you're hard. Stone Island merchants, honestly. I have to cut that bit. Oh, well, it might stay in. Who knows? But yeah, it really annoyed us because I just thought, like, what are you doing, you knobhead? I don't know. I get how football can affect us all emotionally, but like when you start doing stuff like that, you lose me.
Yeah.
It's interesting, almost like you almost get a sense that there's a feeling like there should be a bit of privacy, even though obviously, like not in the legal sense, we've obviously sort of we've covered that, but it's it almost feels like a personal kind of it's almost like a personal grief on a sort of miniature, sort of short-term scale. And I suppose, I don't know, I guess sometimes you just want to take it out on anyone and anything, don't you? And then just
I just feel like because he's clearly more angry at the team losing, and I just thought going up to like, what did that achieve him going and breaking that? Like, it's not the cameraman's fault, you shit. Like, he's just documenting the fact that you're shit and your reaction to you being shit. But yeah. Anyway, to get a lot more positive, somehow you come back and you draw 3-3 for what's the third of 4 3-3 draws this season, and I'd be interested to find out if any other team has like had more 3-3 draws in like a modern day season than this. But unbelievable fight back. Is it 2 own goals, isn't it? Because
one hit.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, because Catamol, it's the first goal, Catamol's header, which bounces off and then just hits Brownhill and goes in.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Fletcher scores a rebound.
No, does it? I thought he missed.
Does he?
Oh, yeah. He gets like a point blank save, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, you might be right, yeah. I can't remember, to be honest.
I forgot who scored the second goal. I think it was McGeady. I might be wrong on that.
It was McGeady. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Soro like puts in a ball across the goal. The defender slices it.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Cue absolute bedlam in the away end at Ashton Gate. Bedlam in Andy Canis' living room. Tease all over the shop. And a great quote from him here. He's just saying, "Oh, I might actually watch the championship tonight. The chick flicks will have to wait." Get on, Andy. Get her told. She didn't get a say last time you were on camera. She don't get a say now. I've made him sound so authoritarian. I'm sorry, Andy. I know you seem a really nice bloke. I bet you're actually a horrible person. Just an amazing result, and there just seems to be like 2 or 3 of these throughout the documentary where it's like, oh, this might be where it turns around, and then it just never does. Unfortunately, it just seems to be like a bit of false hope. But I think it shows even throughout the darkest of seasons like this there's still joys to be had as a football fan. And you can have them every now and then. So yeah. And then you come away, Jason Steele is talking about maybe wanting to move to Derby on loan, saying he wants to fall back in love with football again. And I understand that a decent player cannot look decent in a toxic environment. But you're crap. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're just bad, that might be why you're not in love with football, because you're not very good at it. Like, he's not performed. Like, obviously I'm not Sunderland fan, so I didn't go to any of these games, but I couldn't tell you. Well, I went to whenever they played us, I went, but like I couldn't tell you a game that he played well.
Yeah, he's poor the whole season.
So yeah, I feel like sometimes I feel like he might be shirking responsibility a little bit, and I think he does that throughout. But we get unfortunate news. Well, it is unfortunate because now we've only got one goalkeeper. That Robin Wright is out for the season with his grim hand. Yeah. And I've wrote here because Plater reminded me of this like in a bit that we thought, but I wrote this note and I didn't know what it meant until James brought up that Router was injured. I've just put, we interrupt this episode of Sunderland Till I Die to bring you casualty as we get shown in-depth views of the operation on Robin Writer's hand, which again is grim. He's got like pins through it and everything. His girlfriend nearly throws up, and I don't blame her.
Yeah, it's not me feeling it's sick. Like
yeah,
I feel really, really weird now.
Yeah, like pins and needles now. But yeah, now you've got Lee Camp.
He took it very well, in fairness, didn't he? Like he did. I mean, I know, like he seemed to see it and not be all that fussed by it. I know he's obviously going to have anaesthetic and whatnot, but what it reminded me of a bit was Doctor Strange, just on a slightly smaller scale. So
I feel like the next part is honestly one of the series' serious high points is the discussion with Johnny Williams with his struggles with injuries and how he has been a player who's clearly got so much talent that has been hampered by stuff beyond his control, and that's shattered his confidence and his self-belief. You can see it in him. He's very honest about how he talks about it. He's very brave of him, to be honest, to let his meeting with a psychiatrist be recorded. For a lot of people, I suppose, a private thing. So for him to do that, and I think it showcases that Lee Hendry talked about it a lot. Like, there needs to be spaces in football clubs, and this for mental health and for people to be able to discuss their issues, because it affects all of us. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're in; it affects everyone. And it seemed like they had at Sunderland, for one thing, for a shambles or a club, whatever they were, they had a really good, for someone that wasn't even their player, by the way, he was on loan. They had a really good support network there for him. And that was really good to see. And you just hope that a lot of other football clubs can continue in this same thing, because I felt so sorry for him. And hearing him speak like broke my heart. But just to see like the support net that he got, it's very encouraging for the future of mental health in football. And let's stop being depressing and actually get on to more funny bits. Oh, no, it's not funny, because I'm going to talk about Alfie Joey. Right, okay. Comedy is subjective, is how I'm just going to start this bit. It's subjective. You can like what you like. You cannot like what you not like. I do not like Alfie Joey. He's shit. His material consists of saying the word fuck and impressions of Italian-American actors. That's it. That's his act.
I did quite enjoy the Italian-American impressions, I'm not going to lie.
I just... Well, yes, because he's got Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. Like, and he's like, oh, what if they were in, get this, football? Oh, it infuriated me. It's so bad. It's bottom tier comedy. Because he said, I think, I know this is rich coming from me, but he said fuck about like 10 times in one sentence, and that was the joke.
Yeah.
I'm not slagging you if you did, because obviously it's subjective, but did any of you enjoy that?
No.
I don't know who he is.
No.
I'd obviously never heard of him before this, because he seems just like someone who just does like local gigs. At least he was doing a local gig that night. I've never heard of him before or since, and this might have been what killed him off. So I don't think he's getting a call from live at the Apollo anytime soon to do his Robert De Niro impression.
No, I suppose, I don't know. It was just almost a way of like putting it, like he phrased it. He kind of introduced himself as like people from Sunderland, kind of like that willingness to sort of laugh at themselves, kind of, and like just sort of viewing it lightly to make it, because it makes it slightly more. I guess it almost makes it slightly less daunting when you just sort of kind of make light of it. But yeah, it was an interesting take on it, I suppose.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because I agree with what he said about it like when you're from those sort of areas, when you're from not the richest of areas in the country, which Sunderland definitely isn't, humour plays a massive part in the culture, and especially when it comes to a football team, something that's that important. Like, it is important to joke about it and have levity about it. It's also important for those jokes to be fucking funny. And we're not. I wish I'd have wrote them down, because, like, honestly, like, he says, like, oh, it makes people happier if the team's doing bad, and you just go out and tell some jokes. I'd have killed myself if I were in that audience. And they all seem to be loving it, which, fair enough. Like, again, comedy subjective, if they enjoyed it, all power to him, but it would not surprise me if Fulwell's editing hand was at play again and they just piped some noise in that wasn't there just to make him feel a bit better. Anyway, sorry, Alf Joey, if you're watching, but I think you're shit. Anyway.
Someone's just sitting there with a list, you know, Harvey, of fucking, like, people who you were pissing off, like, in this video. Gary Bennett, Alfie Joy.
I've not said anything about GB. Not said anything about him. He's a good lad. Yeah, I didn't. This wasn't my intention. I didn't go into this thinking I was just going to slag him. But this is just how it's turned out, unfortunately.
Sometimes just
yeah, sorry. But yeah, we move on. That's overplayed to a 1-0 loss to Bolton, which sort of just gets like pushed under the rug. And the last real thing in this episode is a 3-3 draw against Middlesbrough. Which I feel like the story coming out of this game, if I remember it at the time, when it actually happened, was Callum McManaman and Tony Pulis. And that doesn't get touched on at all, because in this story that they're telling, Callum McManaman's very much Aaron's gone. We'll have him back and then we'll continue. Callum McManaman isn't really seen as an important player in this. But I remember at the time, like, did Pulis like slagging off before the game, Adam? Am I right in saying that?
Pardon?
Did Pulis slag him off before the game? Am I right in saying that?
I think he might have. I can't really remember, to be honest. Like,
I think he said something along the lines of he didn't quit X team because he had him at West Brom, I think.
yeah.
So he didn't quit at West Brom. He won't quit at Sunderland. I think that's like along the lines of what he said. And then McManaman was the one who popped up and got the last minute equaliser, and I think he ran straight over to Tony Pulis, like scored.
Yeah, he ran over and celebrated in front of them.
Yeah, probably not the smartest move to wind up Tony Pulis, but fair enough. Rather him than me.
Oh.
But Johnny Williams scored in this game. Get in.
Yeah.
That made me very happy.
Thing was as well, you could tell just how happy all his teammates were for him as well. Like, they genuinely seemed so pleased that he'd come on and obviously scored after all. He deserved some good luck, didn't he?
Yeah, it very much lowered my blood pressure after the Alfie Joey bit. To see something that brought me genuine joy. That brings us to the end of episode 6. We kick off episode 7, changing the landscape, with something that I feel is quite apt. It's a funeral parlour, I think. They talk about Sunderland fans who have since passed on and the requests of red and white flowers or red and white coffins or being buried in Sunderland kits. And I'm like, yes, Sunderland and death. What a lovely combination to go into this episode with, given what happens at the end of it. But after that, we see Aidan McGeady at the training ground, who is quite critical of Chris Coleman's management. And this is like the first time we really see Chris Coleman getting like proper criticism since he'd arrived at the club. McGeady is very frustrated about what he probably sees like a flippant attitude to defeat. He says he didn't really get instructions when he was asked to play wide in a 4-3-3. He wasn't specified what he should or shouldn't be doing at that point. And
I think it was the Millwall away game where McGeady was told to play like high and wide, and he was saying like he hadn't played that role before. And it was sort of like, well, he'd just sort of been like left in the dark about what he had to do in that position. So I think that's why he was sort of critical of Coleman. Of his like management style.
Yeah, he mentions after that, he says I think he seems to blame Coleman for Graben leaving. He says well, when you've got that player, you do what you can to keep hold of him, and I feel that's slightly unfair. I think that was out of Coleman's hands. So I think Bournemouth wanted him back because they thought they were going to be able to cash in on him. So I feel like if the decision was up to Coleman, I don't see why he'd let him go when he didn't really have another striker, considering he was more than keen on selling James Vaughan.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was unfair. But go on to have 2 consecutive defeats. First away at QPR 1-0 and 2-0 at Preston as well, as relegation seems to be more of a possibility. And it's really brought to light in this episode how important this is, as it's not really just football, it's people's lives. Because they go around the staff and they discuss the redundancies that were made the summer prior due to relegation, and how fearful they are that will happen again and that their jobs may be lost. And it's scary. It's a scary and sad thing, really, because it isn't just football. Like you watch it as a fan and you just don't realise how many people. Like, it affects you emotionally as a fan, but you're not losing your job because your team's gone down. Like, some people are. And it's not like managers or players where they've already got like mass income and they can always rely on it, or they've always got another job waiting. These people are seriously staring down the barrel of unemployment, and you can only imagine how anxious it'd be for them. But it's not ideal. But a pick me up was away at Derby. Where the bloody hell did this come from? 4-1 win at Pride Park, Aaron.
rushing blood to the head, I think, mate. Literally, I think that's the only way of describing it. I mean, like, see, throughout the season, we haven't had the strongest side and stuff like that. And then when we do get like results like that, it's like fucking hell, like exactly where's that came from? Why haven't we played like this all season? You know what I mean? Like, sure, we did have the talent and like obviously a bit of luck gagged away here and there, but obviously it's just one of them things. It's a bit bittersweet, isn't it? It's like a 4-1 win against a really strong side who would get promoted to the championship. Sorry, I've completely goosed that. We're already in the championship, aren't we? Who would like be contending the next season for promotion to the Premiership? And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like how can you pull a result like that off, and then for the rest of the season be absolutely shite, absolute dog shite.
Yeah, it just seems to just be like we struck gold at a certain time, and at this point there was a lot of focus being put on Fletcher getting goal, which he did in this game, and I love the celebration of this goal. With just Cattermole like just pointing at Fletcher's back, screaming, "Get behind him! Get behind him!" I love that. I just see everyone seems really pulling for Ashley Fletcher at this point.
Fletcher was a confidence player, I think. Like when he scored. Like it was later in the second half, and he got the ball on like the left wing, I think, and he ran at his defender and he cut inside and hit the post. And it just shows like if he had a bit of confidence behind him, he would have like actually started to pick up the performances and actually like have confidence in front of goal. But unfortunately, it was sort of too little, too late. Ultimately, wasn't good enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the weight of expectation played a big part in his like career in general, because he obviously came through at Man United, was very successful in their youth system, and out of nowhere, like West Ham paid like $5 million for him, like $7 million it might be. So like, it's big money to spend on a player who'd only made like 2 senior appearances. At the time for Manchester United, there's a lot of expectation going from at West Ham when he's still not a fully developed player, still a kid, so he doesn't really hit ground how obviously you shouldn't. Like, he's still only a youth team player. To just put a massive expectation on him by spending that much money. And the Middlesbrough do the same thing. Like they spend multi-millions on him and expect him to be this wonder kid when he's not. He's just a good striker. So I feel like you're very right in saying that he is a confidence player. But how do you follow up a 4-1 win away at Derby? Your player gets sacked. That's the perfect way to follow it up. Darren Gibson causes absolute chaos with his drink driving antics. You see videos of the cars just absolutely torn to bits. It's very destructive. Lucky that no one was hurt. Very reckless actions from the midfielder, and of course we don't know what his situation was. I am not ready to say why this happened. Obviously, I don't know. And Martin Bain, I think he's very quick to stress that this player clearly does have some personal issues, and it's very important that he gets those addressed before any like wild statements about him. Still, it's indefensible. Still, it's a very irresponsible thing to do, especially a person in his position.
Yeah.
But I do hope that whatever issues were troubling Gibson at that time have since subsided, because you don't really want to see anyone in a state where those are the actions that they're going to be making. But he was let go by the football club. I don't think anyone can argue that was that wasn't the right decision.
No. Yeah.
So I think when someone, especially after controversy he'd already caused, I think it was just what had to be done. And then it moves on to what was the final nail in the coffin at home to Burton Albion. God, this game, obviously, like on reflection of the season, Sunderland probably deserved to go down. They'll play throughout the season, but this is just a horrible way to do it. You're at home to your relegation rivals, who like themselves haven't been great. Obviously, different expectations between Burton and Sunderland, but you're beating them away from home. You feel like, right, so try and boost our survival chances. We need to win this game. And you go 1-0 up through Paddy McNair, who I felt like he scored quite a few goals, and I think they were quite a few. Like, I think focus could have been put more on him in this documentary. I remember he scored an absolute screamer away at Reading. Belter. But, like, they don't seem to care about him. It's a bit weird. But I digress. Old favourite Darren Bent pops up and gets an equaliser in the 85th minute, I want to say. It's pretty late on because Sunderland were 1-0 up for quite a while in this game. And you get the lovely pleasantries of the Sunderland faithful of greedy bastard and your so-ons for ex-Black Cat Darren Bent. And then just, oh God, the ball comes in, Liam Boyce, future Sunderland target, Liam Boyce gets his head to it, keeper can't get anywhere near it, nestles into the bottom corner, and it just sort of like sinks in around the ground. Because at a point that day, they'd probably been like, yeah, we're definitely going down now, but it wouldn't have been confirmed. But you're deep into stoppage time. You know, you just see heads drop behind the goal in sort of recognition of, oh God, this is it. Like, I'm guessing you were there at that day, Adam. Like, just talk us through seeing that live.
Yeah, it wasn't my best moment as a Sunderland fan. You know, when the goal went in, you're thinking, right, like, reality's hit. And what made it worse was that we went for an equaliser and we scored.
Yeah.
And it got ruled out, for, it was either offside or handball.
It was handball, and I feel, right, it's a difficult one, and the angle they show on the documentary doesn't really help. I proper slowed it down to see. And bear in mind, this is before the current rule that we have. If it hits any part of your hand in any way in the lead up to a goal, then it's disallowed. This was before that rule was introduced. But I can't quite tell which player it is. It might be Fletcher. But he has his arm like out, and it's point blank. But the Burton player attempts to clear, and it hits him there. It is handball, but I feel like it's very harsh. You wouldn't give a penalty for that. Is like my first thought, because it was like so close. Like a penalty wouldn't get given for that, which is why I felt it was so harsh. Especially since it could have kept you up at least for that week.
Yeah, it was a horrible way to get relegated, especially at home as well. It wasn't the best.
Yeah, a day that lives on in Sunderland fans' memories. It's the last time they played in, not the last time, but the last championship game of significance for them for the last couple of years anyway. And, all clouds have a silver lining, and obviously from a neutral perspective, the silver lining for me was the bloke and his missus, the bloke standing up, absolutely apoplectic with rage. Let's have a whip round, pay the rest.
that was
unbelievable. Amazing. He's just got like a 20 quid note in his hand or whatever, or a fiver or whatever. He's like, how much are they paying you? And I find that very ironic that they're against, like, fair enough, you're against like Wolves, where they've spent like 30 million or whatever on players. They're against Burton Albion. They got 40 players. They can barely afford to pay the players. Never mind the ref. Like, unless Newcastle's paid for it, then I don't think you've got that to worry about. But yeah, it's one of the best quotes from the series. But I think it brings, as Alfie Joey would say, it brings a bit of levity to a really sad moment. Wise bloke, that Alfie Joey. Anyway. After the game, obviously, everyone's dejected around the club, including Chris Coleman. There's still some supporters waiting outside for pictures and autographs and whatnot. And one fan who seems a tad bit inebriated, I think it's fair to say, just is out to cause trouble. He leans over the side, just goes, "Come here, Chris." And it's like, oh, it's a lovely way to open a conversation. And to be fair, he starts off all right. He asks how he felt, and Chris Coleman's obviously just like, oh, well, obviously it's an horrible day for all there is. And then just out of nowhere, he just goes, "You haven't got a fucking clue, mate." And you're like, whoa. Like, all right, calm down a bit. And Chris Coleman actually takes that bit quite well. And he's just like, right, well, like, clearly you don't know me very well. And then he goes to pay attention to the fans who are actually there to speak to him and not just abuse him. But then apparently the word prick to Chris Coleman is like read to a bull, because as the fan is like walking off, he's just oh, you fucking prick, and Coleman just switches and he goes for him. And I remember the first time I watched this, I'm like, oh my god, are they actually gonna have a scrap? And like Because like Kit Simons sort of like evaluates the situation before it kicks off and just decides, nah, and just gets in his car.
I'm a married man with 6 kids. Like that defines what a prick is. Like how many children you've got and the fact that you're married. Like
yeah, I love that reasoning from him. I don't think Coleman's a prick, but
No.
the fact
that's what we're going off. You're all pricks, lads, you know what I mean? So there's me up.
Yeah, the fan's clearly out of order, and just it was clearly up for the fight, but it ended up happening. But I think the ending scene in the pubs, the Sunderland fans seem upbeat. I feel like you just for a couple of months now, I think Sunderland fans sort of accepted that this is what the outcome was going to be, and they said, "Look, we'll be back next season. Like we're Sunderland, like we're always going to come to the football." I think that rather than what was shown with the fan who had a go at Coleman or the fan that broke the camera. That's what Sunderland fans are. Like, it doesn't matter where their club is. Sunderland fans are Sunderland fans. They're not just football fans. Like, they are there for their club through the darkest of times. And that's very commendable. As we move on to the final episode of the series, episode 8, A Fresh Start. Oh, we meet some lovely people in this episode. We kick off with Ellis Short at the EFL headquarters, refusing to answer a journalist's question. And I just thought, were you a politician in your former time, Ellis? Because you're doing a pretty good job of that there. But, and we find out also there's a little it's almost like a cameo because there's Martin Baines, he looks knackered by the way. Martin Baines, he looks so worn out from all of this. He just looks, get me out of here now. He's showing potential investors, and do you know that weird camera that they've got in the physio's room?
Yeah.
It shows an angle from there, and you see Big Charlie walk in. I'm like, oh yes, Big Charlie Method. And then we go to Chris Coleman and Charlotte Coleman, his wife, who previously did reporting for Sky Sports News, I believe. I think I'm right there, aren't I? And I honestly think I noticed this though. Are they the best looking couple in football management? Maybe Neil Warnock and his missus has got them rivaled, but other than them, I don't think there's any touching them two. They're pretty.
Dick advocating them birds when he was playing out in Holland.
Yeah, very good shout. So they discuss the time at Sunderland and reveal that Coleman never spoke to Ellis Short, which is just I know that Ellis Short had just pretty much just can find that he was done with the club at this point, but even still they said that he'd got texts from former chairmen at different clubs offering the commiserations and condolences, but nothing from your own chairman. It wouldn't quite sit well with me. I know
that. Doesn't really surprise you, does it, with Ellis Short?
No.
He never spoke to anybody anywhere, did he? Just invested.
Seems quite an introverted bloke when you see him on camera. He never looks comfortable on camera or anything.
Yeah.
The Player of the Year awards, I feel, is it John O'Shea that's given actual Player of the Year? Because he never announces it, but you see him with a trophy.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
Joel Asoro gets a Young Player of the Year. Swansea just thought, we'll have him. That was, as a young child gives Chris Coleman advice on next season, play Asoro. Oh dear. Unlucky, mate. And then it's announced that Coleman's sacked. We get told by Mark Chapman, of all people. But Mark Chapman appears on a screen to tell us that Chris Coleman, and Kit Simons have been relieved of their duties at Sunderland Football Club. And the new investors revealed, they're saying, we don't know where the money's going to come. We don't know where the money's coming from. We still don't know where the money's coming from. So good analysis and good journalism there, because we still don't know where that money's. But we do know the two people fronting it are Stuart Donald and Charlie Methven. Or Stewie D and Charlie Brent, as I like to call them. But they've arrived, and it's weird looking back on now, because I know when this first came out, I saw that and I thought, do you know what? They actually look because it came out during the infancy of Sunderland's first season in League One when they started pretty well. They were up at the top of the league. They'd spent some money. Jack Ross was in, looking to do a decent job, and obviously hindsight's a powerful thing. At the time watching this, you wouldn't blame Sunderland fans to be looking at it like, look, okay, yeah, this is actually our chance to rebuild. We've been on a downward slope for 10 years. The last 2 seasons are the only times we've actually properly felt it. And now is a chance to really get back on our feet. And the energy that they brought, like, you wouldn't blame Sunderland fans for thinking that at all.
No, definitely not. Because it's like getting new owners in, sort of like new flow of optimism and positivity through the fans and the city, and you think, all right, well, things are changing. You think, right, well, this is good. It's like the city, the club, and you think, oh, well, something could happen here. I don't know. Just looking at it now, not the best.
No. Like we say, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
I remember watching it then, like when it first came out, and seeing them two come on the screen. I was like, "Fucking get up, Big Stewie D and Charlie Method, yes!" And then obviously watching it now, when you're thinking, "Fuck's sake," it's just too. It's like the duality of man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think he set out straight away having a good, because he wanted to connect with the fans. Because I think he was what set him apart was he was the polar opposite to Ellis Short. Whereas Ellis Short, like Adam said, didn't really like speaking to anyone, quite introverted, he was on his own. Stuart Donald put himself out there straight away, went on the Roker Report podcast at our lovely St. Peter's campus at the University of Sunderland, in one of the radio studios there with Conor Bromley to speak to him, and was very honest in the interview. And I appreciate, I feel like this is just common etiquette really, but he's asked about Jack Rodwell and Martin Bain, and he said, look, it's not fair to tell everyone else before they know what's happening. I thought that was fair. I thought that was very fair of Stuart Donald to say. And we get some quotes in a press conference he gave prior to the final game of the season at home to Wolves. And he says, the budget will be pretty hefty, which he wasn't wrong about. Looking back in hindsight, how you spend it's a different thing. But for League One, Sunderland did have a pretty big budget. But he spent it in the wrong ways, let's just say. But we'll obviously, when we do a season 2 review, whenever that may be, we'll definitely get to that. And Charlie Methven, and again, here, obviously in hindsight, it might be easy to say he's wrong, but I still don't think he is necessarily. Where he said, a lot of things see Sunderland as easy 3 points, a piss take. Well, that piss take party stops now. And to be honest, like, you had a really good home record in that first season in League One. Right, a very, very strong record. A lot of draws just hampered you along the way. In the second season in League One, maybe not so much, but still not a bad home record. And teams have had to really work hard to beat Sunderland in League One. I don't think he's wrong there, but I just feel like they definitely haven't reached where they wanted to in terms of ambitions of moving the club forward and connecting with the fans also. It's not really worked out. But despite that, new owners, new mood, and somehow you just absolutely doing Wolves 3-0 after they've won the league and you finish bottom. It's a weird game, isn't it, football?
Yeah.
It's good goals as well. Like Ashley Fletcher, like really good finish. McNair getting on the score sheet as well. But yeah, it was it seemed like a wonderful day to be at the ground. Peter Farrell's birthday, so happy birthday, Peter, for that day. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Alright. I like how we never see his wife, but we get him shouting to her before he leaves, like, right, Marie, I'm off. You can imagine she's just like, yeah. Happy birthday, Pete. But yeah.
It was nice to see him get a bit of a reward at the end of it all, at least.
Yeah, I'm happy for him more than I were for the team, to be honest. But yeah, a lovely playing banner goes over with the title of the series, Sunderland Till I Die, which is probably where they got the name of the series from, I imagine, because like I doubt they decided on a name, and seeing that they were like, yeah, that fits. Unless they paid for the plane, which awful PR stunt. If it's the fans, good on. That's right. And Martin Bain leaves the club, which is pretty. I think that was always going to happen. He'd not had a good relationship with the fans whatsoever. He always seemed quite antagonistical whenever they came to speaking to each other. And I've just got here that like Stuart Donald looks genuinely excited, and he did. But yeah, that's really how the show wraps up, sort of with, yes, look how depressing this all was, but look at how good it can possibly be. And then obviously doing this after the second season, come out and just knowing what is going on with the club at the minute, it seems quite naive to say that, but I wouldn't have blamed anyone for thinking that at that time. It's just,
To quote ASAP Rocky Harvey, life's a motherfucker, ain't it?
You can't fault that. I think you're pretty spot on there when it comes to this. I'd just like to round off before we say goodbye. I'll give you mine first. I've had this written down. My 3 favourite people in this entire series, in no particular order, so I wouldn't dare do him the disservice of ranking them. Obviously, the main man, Peter Farrer, absolute hero, best taxi driver in the world. Then we've got Johnny Williams, just because I want to give him a hug. I want to give Johnny Williams a hug and tell him everything's going to be all right. But he just seems like a wonderful bloke. He's a really good footballer. He's been terribly unlucky, and he just treats everyone so nicely. He doesn't seem like he has a bad word to say about anyone. So, Johnny Williams, top boy, and Joyce. Because, it just seems like I could probably sit in a room with Joyce for like 3 hours and just talk about oats and have like a couple of glasses of wine. And it's like, she just seems like a lovely, bubbly woman, and I hope she's doing all right. Because she's in the second season, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
She don't get sacked, thank God. Yeah. All right. So I'll go around. Aaron, we'll go to you first.
Ella Short, Jack Rodwell, Martin Dean.
Very good. Lovely.
No, being serious,
we sort of like skated over.
I actually like Martin Dean. Like, I think that documentary opened my eyes. I know Skinny's got a twist there, but like, I feel like he was a good bloke. He actually did care about the club, and he was just ill-advised. And Ella Short's relationship with him kind of burnt out. You know what I mean? But I thought Martin Dean was fine. I thought he was all right. He actually cared. Just didn't really have a fucking clue.
Skinner, well, Adam, sorry, because people don't know we got Skinner. But we'll go to you now after.
My favourite 3 would probably be Joyce, Peter Farrer, and the bloke at the Burton game who said, let's have a whip round.
Very strong.
The best moments from the show.
So I remember, I think before the game he says, he says, if we have a decent performance and we don't have a blind ref, then we might be all right. Like he's just that fan who thinks every inconvenience that has ever happened to his club is the fault of a referee, and I can get behind that. I can completely get behind it. And James, what are your 3 favourites to round us off?
I think I will. I'll probably go Martin Bain as well, because I do think he comes across quite well within it, and sort of, even though obviously I don't know, he's just in a very, very difficult situation, isn't he? He's trying to steer a sinking ship, or whatever other sort of appropriate metaphor we want to sort of apply to it. I'd say, Joyce as well, because sort of she sums up the kind of like what Chris Coleman's talking about towards the end quite nicely. Just sort of everyone at the club being so sort of caring so much, but also just like literally keeping some of the playing and management staff going. And then I'd probably agree with you, like Johnny Williams as well, just because that was, as you say, genuinely gutsy to let the cameras in on that psychology, the meeting with the psychologist, and actually may have hopefully helped a number of other footballers, just because it shows that they're just as human as the rest of us, and it seemed to help him just sort of opening up on a couple of the things he seemed to feel were holding him back a bit, and it seemed like it was just a bit of a weight off his shoulders. So I think that was one of the most valuable things that came out of it.
Yeah, definitely. What a lovely note to end on there, James. This is why we have to do constant positivity. And speaking of positivity, we've got actual football back. Get in. This is being recorded on the Tuesday, and will more than likely go out on the Thursday after the first couple of Premier League games. So we'll have plenty of content coming out soon. And do please join us next time on the 3rd episode of the Route 1 Football Podcast, which is undecided yet. It may be sort of a football Premier League or Championship style roundup discussion of the opening weekend's action in a lockdown football world, or we may be diving straight into season 2 of Sunderland Till I Die. We will have to wait and see, and we will keep you updated. But I'd like to thank all our guests. So thank you, James, for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
And thank you very much to Aaron as well.
Always a good one, mate.
And of course, thank you to you for watching and sitting through all of this. Our absolute waffle and my absolute hatred of everything, apparently. I tried to be positive during this. Didn't really work out. Thank you so much for watching, and please do join us next time. We'll see you soon.